All right, we'd like to welcome everyone. This is a wonderful group here. If you could stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you, everyone. This is a little bit of an unusual meeting for a couple of reasons. One, there are so many of us here, and so that's a good thing. And one of our board members, Michael Shanahan, is joining by teleconference. So you may hear his voice, and don't worry that there's not a body there. It'll all work out. He's on the laptop. Oh, I can't see him, but you can. There you go. All right, and then also because of that, we usually just all vote together, but all the votes are going to be a roll call vote because that's the law when somebody is not here. So we'll be doing that. And there was a closed session. But there was no action taken, so there's no report on that. I'm not aware of any emergency additions or modifications.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. So all in favor, Jane?
Yes?
Shelley?
Aye.
Aye from me.
Aye.
And Michael?
Aye.
Perfect. So your face is over there, but your voice is over here, just so we can get adjusted to that. And then the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or any talk? There were two meetings, the regular session and the joint session.
I'll move to approve both.
Second?
All right. Jane, on a vote?
Yes, aye.
Shelley? Thane, yes.
Yes.
Kevin, yes. Michael?
Aye.
Great. And now we have a special moment for our awards. So we'd like to invite first San Antonio. So yeah,
Yes.
come on up.
Wow, there are a lot of people. Well, thank you so much. My name is Ann Gard. I'm 5th grade teacher over at San Antonio, and this is Kenny Bendorf, one of my students at San Antonio. And I nominated Kenny for the Inclusive Community Award. And we talked a little bit about what that meant to a 5th grader. We know what it means for us, but what does that translate to a 5th grader? So this is how we defined inclusive community. A community where everyone feels safe, respected, and comfortable, and being themselves and expressing their ideas and feelings. And when we think about Kenny, those of us that know him, he exhibits many different qualities that shine those elements of inclusive community through. And today, I asked a few of our classmates specifically what Kenny does to represent inclusive communities. And what came through loud and clear was that he's a giver. He walks into a room and he's very quiet. He doesn't command too much attention. But if there's a need, Kenny is there giving that need. So whether it's somebody who might need help, somebody who might feel a little left out, somebody who maybe wants to try something new but is unsure how to do that, Kenny's there. So I'll read just a couple of comments. This is from Nasia. Kenny helps our community by being a good role model, by being a gentle man, and helping others when they ask for help. If you feel left out, Kenny will help you. I like basketball with Kenny, even if you were on the other team. That's from Britta. You make games fair, and that's really important. Kenny includes people when they are lonely. And this one was my personal favorite one. This is from Irene. Kenny invited the whole class to his birthday. That gives me a little teary He always lets us play with him. Whenever anyone is sad, Kenny always finds a way to make that person laugh. So Kenny is obviously awesome, and we're very lucky to have him at San Antonio.
Wonderful,
Hello up there.
thank you
Sorry.
very much. And, yeah, let's, is this the one? I'll give you this award now, and then we're all gonna take a picture after with everybody. So congratulations, thank you for being here. So don't leave yet, we still want to take a picture. All right, and now from Matilahan.
It's all
We were hoping we would be third because geographically we'd be right after Topa Topa, but either way it'll work. So, I'm Steve Gard, attached to Mrs. Gard. So we're just bringing students to this left and right. So this is Christian Quezada, and he is my environmental steward award winner for this this trimester. He was not aware that he was doing things for an award, which is actually my favorite way of finding out what student strengths are. And his strength really is he asks questions. And he asks questions regardless of if everybody else is into it, but then he can also relay that information back. So if we're identifying plants, if we're out mulching in the schoolyard habitat, if we're in some brand new environment, he's going to ask, how does that work? How does that fit? And I can see it when he's off working with his groups too. He is communicating this, and it's never a question of, he's not, and nobody else realizes he's in charge, but he's in charge. And so as the groups are going along, you can see Christian going, and everybody else going. And then Christian goes off this way, and everybody else goes. So he's got a real natural way about him. I really appreciate that. And why that matches up so well environmentally is somebody's going to ask questions. They're going to look for solutions. I never see him get involved in a problem. It's always, how are we going to do something a little bit better? How am I going to find my interest level? And how do I share that with other people around me? So I thought just an excellent example, very natural character. Thank you, Mom and Dad, doing a tremendous job. And looking forward to working the rest of the year.
Steve, can I add, he's a fabulous baseball player as well.
Bringing endorsement.
And that's what really counts.
Yeah. Well, that'll let it, because,
And then,
you know,
we could have
got
both
the
students
got
come
the
up here
grass on the
and do
field.
a picture back here.
Right?
Come on up, and Kenny, come on up, let's take a picture.
So maybe board,
By
we
the
can
flag?
gather
All of us?
underneath this, and I'll move my chair over to the side. We're a little squished right now, but. And, Ms. Munson, can you take a picture, please?
All right, you guys right in the middle. Because you're the important ones.
Face the camera.
Where's the crew outfit? Stand here. You can stand here. Can you hold up your, all right. Got it? All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, great, and then Jeff.
Jeff, yes. So I can read this one if you want.
That would be great.
Oh, you don't have a chair.
That was,
All right, the board is asked to recognize volunteer Jeff Otterbein for his contribution to the, Vine. I even have a little pronunciation thing here, but it was hiding. For his contributions to the students of the Ojai Unified School District. So we started a new initiative called the Family Fund, and we asked families how many students would need bicycles to participate in the Bike to School Week. And we said we would support the Bike to School Week if we could make sure that all students had access to a bicycle. So Jeff stepped up. He worked with the community. He worked with Linda Jordan. We got 40 bicycles donated. He organized on Saturdays having mechanics come in. They completely redid all of those bikes. They put new chains on and new tires and everything that they needed. We scheduled times and we had 34 families come and pick out bikes for their students to take home right before the Bike to School Week. So we would like to recognize Jeff for his contributions and for making
Thank you so much. Yeah, why don't we get another picture?
So I'd just like to say a word that I thought I was getting away with just doing Bike to School Week and getting kids on their bicycles, and then Miss Tiffany said, "How about those kids that don't have bikes?" Wow, that's a great idea. Thanks for coming up with that one. Then many of you, the community, came up with 46 bicycles, I think, that we put in the Chaparral Auditorium. And they weren't all in great shape, and out of those 46, we ended up with 38 or so bicycles that kids rode out of here, and it was a really super day to see them ride away on their bikes and helmets, and warmed my heart. Thank you very much.
One of the people that makes Ojai great.
Yes.
Agreed.
So,
Alright.
pictures?
I think she did it.
Oh, you did it.
We're all
Great,
set.
thanks. Thanks again.
So that's usually the point where a few people sneak out. If you were here for the honorees, you're welcome to
The
sneak
sneak
out.
out. So, just to kind of explain the order for the next couple of items, I think some of you might be here for the charter school petition submission.
Yes.
And the actual submission is going to be really anticlimactic because it's well, no, it's just turning papers over. So the exciting part of that is to hear what you all think about it, and that's the public comments part. And so we're in public comments. There may be some public comments that aren't about the charter petition, and that's okay too. But we're going to start with Danny Everett.
Can we just point
Yeah.
out that there is a future,
So there will be a
yeah.
public hearing to be scheduled during the item, potentially on November 5th. At that point, we will invite members of the public. The Summit Charter School petitioners will have a chance to give a presentation, probably 20 to 30 minutes. Then public will be able to come and comment, parents, et cetera, et cetera. So there will be another time to have a whole board meeting dedicated to discussion of the charter school.
And then there'll be another board meeting 30 days after that, there'll be opportunity for discussion there as well. So this is only the beginning. Well, it's already started. It's not even the beginning, but there will be lots of other opportunities. Great, Danny, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having this open forum, and I know this has been a long drawn process, and I know this is something that the school board has been dealing with for a long time, and I do understand and appreciate the difficulty we have because we have a community that has shrinking population in our schools, and that affects and impacts how effective our schools can be, and Summit has been somewhat of a kind of a victim of that, and although it was very painful to see it had to be kind of like put on hold for this school year, I think one of the really positive things that came out of it and we saw is that there is an existing school going on the campus that's thriving with way more students than we had when my children went there. And I feel that this charter application is a really good, and I know sometimes charter school and public school seems like they're adversaries and they're enemies, and charter schools are like the enemy of a public school. But I think in this community, a charter school could really work well, and it could really be a great feeder source to our other public schools here. And I just really hope that we really take a nice, strong look at that and look at a way that we can look at charter schools in a way that we have never looked at it before from the public school perspective, and see if there can be some type of synergy created where we have a thriving charter school up there in that wonderful spot, and then use the students that are going there to then come to our public schools here. And I think that could be a really good symbiotic type of relationship that we can create. So I appreciate your time. I know this is difficult because, again, with the population shrinking, the thought of having something else pulling from it, I think if we can flip it and look at it as we can get people to go there and then pull from them, I think would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, Marcella Crawford, and then Paul Royal would be up next. Is Marcella here?
Yes, hi.
Great. Hi, great.
Hi, I'm here to support the charter school, and I just think that it's a wonderful thing, an opportunity for those that are seeking to not have to travel far for their children, or people that are in Santa Paula, that it will be, you know, something more beneficial for them to go to. Also, I have a lot of children and a lot of grandkids now, and they're living up there, part of my family, and they would like not to have to go to Santa Paula because they're a little bit closer to Santa Paula, and to have their kids there will be, it's a beautiful location. So I'm really excited if this goes through for the kids. And for those that have been paying tuition for a long time, the opportunity to go into a public school and be supported by the Ohio Unified School District, which would be wonderful. So I'm game, I'm supporting it, and that's all I wanted to say, and I'm really appreciative of your time, and thank you.
Great, thank you. Paul Royal, and then James Odling afterwards.
I'm getting there.
You can take your time.
Okay, when do you start the clock?
When you start talking.
You know, funny thing, when you spoke earlier, it sounded like you said, and I heard he's coming in by helicopter, so I thought that's pretty cool for the board member to fly in like that, but I think you said teleconference or something. But I'm Paul Royal, and I was a public school educator for almost 40 years at Santa Paula High School. I served in the capacity of administrator, a coach, and a classroom teacher. Did a lot of personnel hiring while with the Santa Paula district, and I understand the importance of public education, and I'm not here to in any way denigrate what Ohio Unified does. One of the beauties of living in Upper Ohio is when I retired 10 years ago, I put my name on the sublist. So I have taught in every single school in Ohio Unified. The education the kids receive is excellent. The administrators have got their thumb on the pulse, and the teachers are zealots for these kids to succeed. So I'm not here to put you down, and Dr. Morse, I appreciate you allowing us to speak and accepting this petition. You know, I had 6 kids go through Summit, 3 biological and 3 foster. And the point of that is the neighborhood public school, living up there with 6 grandkids, is very, very important. And we have lost a real gem when that school shut its doors. I understand financially why. I worked with school budgets in the Santa Paula district for many, many years. Teaching economics to seniors. Early 20th century, there were many, many what they called, they were trusts. And those trusts were monopolies. And the government saw the adverse effect of monopolies on the economy, and they broke them up. The sugar trust, the oil trust, the railroad, they were all broken up. The biggest trust, the biggest monopoly today in the U.S. is education. And school districts seem to think that that money belongs to them. That money belongs to the child, and it follows the child wherever he or she goes. What I would like to see, and what I see coming out of that background is a rising tide lifts all ships. And that rising tide is competition. And that's what breaking those trusts did. It brought in competition. From competition you get excellence. What we want to do is raise the excellence of this district. It's great. I think it's wonderful to come in here and work with all of you. But it could be even better, and we can see that from our test scores in the district. It can improve. So if you would go into this document that we're going to give you tonight and go in there with an open mind, please don't go in there with your mind closed that no way, no how, because we don't want competition that's going to steal kids from us. We want to work with you, collaborate with you. So please, as you read it, keep your mind open and make a decision that's best for the kids. And that is competition, raising the excellence of the Summit School Charter, and also Ojai Unified. Thank you very much.
And after James will be Gloria, I believe.
My name is James Odling. This year was 65 years since Board versus Brown Education. It ruled that separate but equal is illegal. And this year, President Trump in May declared the same week that Brown versus Education was determined by the Supreme Court. He declared it National Charter School Week. So I just want to make some points that charter schools are not about equity. My first involvement in defending equity in education was in 1974 when I was living in Los Angeles. I was involved in a campaign to defend the segregation plan. And we had one rally we had to defend ourselves against uniformed Nazis showing up. So that's the extreme. But I still think it's not a coincidence that Donald Trump, on 65 years of Board versus Education, declared it National Charter School Week. And the links between that Brown decision and tax-funded private school vouchers, racial disparities, have given rise to the school choice movement. And charter schools can do something. They can cherry pick performing students or weed out those who have extra needs when they send them back to the public schools. So it's not about equity. It's about the opposite. It's not about desegregation anymore. It's about introducing inequity in the school system. And I don't think Ojai is exceptionalist. We know people here who live in Ojai, and a woman has immigration status questionable, 3 children. Can she get it together to send her exceptional son to a charter school? I think not. Jonathan Colzo wrote the famous book at the Bronx schools, whose name I forget it. He says there's always a situation where you can always find parents that are more and more astute, can send their kids to a better situation, even in a bad situation. Well, we have a very good situation here. I think we should defend the public schools and not have public finance private schools, which are the charter school is. Thank you.
And while Gloria's talking, if anybody else wants to fill in a speaker form and speak, please let us know.
Gloria, Valladolid. I spoke several times against charter schools in this room to the committee at the time collecting data for recommendations for what they were going to do with Summit School. At that time, one of the things I did was to present a comparison between public schools and charter schools to show that they are very different. Another time, I identified the results experienced by LAUSD after charter schools decimated the public schools by bringing down enrollment by overwhelming numbers. The charter schools left primarily special education students enrolled in public schools. If tonight, when you read what's being submitted here by the charter schools, you see some good ideas, I think that's great. Consider the ideas and then implement them in your existing public schools. Finally, I simply want to go on record as a community member against allowing charter schools at Summit.
Thank you. Thank you. Kimberly Rivers. No,
This is the
this
agenda
is,
item.
this is public comment.
So she's for
Do you want
agenda
to
item
wait for the
6.
agenda item? Okay.
I wanted to provide public comment on the agenda item.
Right.
At that time.
Okay, that's fine.
No.
We can do that.
We're just
Then
doing
we will hold you for that. And it's time for our Student Advisory Council.
So the Student Advisory Council met in early October and we discussed ways that we could engage our student body in our ideas that we would bring to the board. And we were wanting to start a student government, but we were wanting to have a meeting with Mr. Munson to discuss that and see what he thinks.
Well, we were also discussing the classroom presidents that exist through the leadership, and having those two groups meet and possibly work together. And it just, even in just letting the student body know of their existence and what each of them do, which is different, and what they might do together. And so but it's really their ideas that they want to meet with Mr. Munson and sort of say where does he want us to go? What are administration ideas? And also if administration has ideas in terms of we want to talk to students about vaping, say it's a what hearing his ideas from it's sort of like he gets a chance to talk to students before he talks to the whole student body, and might learn ways where they can help him and he can help them, and it's just they're really excited to kind of. Arlie was one of our representatives last year, and he was talking about how much he learned in this process and how he wants that process to reach more students. So that's what they're focusing on. How do we reach more students with information?
Fantastic. Well, thank you, and thanks for being here. And we have started a new item for our board meetings, and that is some comment and input from our employee union presidents. And so we'd like to start with the CSEA, Chuck Crawford. And Angie, you can guess you're next.
Good evening, Board. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. I appreciate your compassion and empathy on all subjects. Tonight's no different. It's a pleasure to be a part of this community. The issues have been difficult, and I know with my years of being with you guys that you really take these to heart. And just seeing that bicycle incident is just one of those examples. For CSEA, we struggle with the issues that are not just Ojai Unified, but state. We used to be the $550,000 medium price housing, which is part of our declining enrollment. We're not unique to that anymore. It's now a whole state of California issue. The minimum wage, we've addressed that, and this district is in line with that. But with the CSEA people, we struggle with the idea of the local issues versus the state issues, and we give thanks to you, the board, for addressing these issues in an equitable way. This year, this school year, we've seen the idea of the sixth grade movement. The classified employees have done a lot of adapting this year. I think we all have. But I feel like the classified employees have been the glue to be in many places where we didn't think we needed to be. But we've been able to pull this together, and it's been a great start with a few surprises. But I think we're going forward, and I just wanted to give thanks to all. And let you know that we feel like we're struggling, but it's not an Ojai issue, it's actually a state issue. And I appreciate that we can have a room full of people here to have these discussions, because like the charter school and some of the comments that were made, it's not an Ojai issue, it's a state issue, as somebody's already made the comment this evening. We as CSEA look at the charter school idea when it is fair and equitable, and the governor has just signed some legislation in regards to how the funding happens, because we know that has been an issue in the past. So it's being addressed. And certainly to see the community of Summit School, who's been very supportive for many years. I can think back to Dr. Baird when we actually talked about closing the school then. So I hope the community sees the compassion that you do, CSEA does, And it's a pleasure working with you through these difficult times.
Thanks. You too, Chuck. Thank you. And representing the Ojai Federation of Teachers, Angie Janassi.
Wow, there's a lot of people in here. I am Angie Janassi, and I am the president of the Ojai Federation of Teachers. I do want to recognize also, it's just, no matter what our union, the Federation, feels about charter schools, I do have to say it's just phenomenal to see a group of people come together, and that is what Ojai is all about.
Amen.
So I just have to say I love that. Last time I came up, I was talking about how the school year had started out a little rough for teachers, and I want to let you know that the words that I now hear are, it's smoothing out. So, yeah. Yes, exactly. So we're very happy to be able to say that and let you know that. Some of the issues that had come up were understanding how to use Parent Square, and that's our communication tool with parents. And I think we're beginning to get that. There's still a few issues about how to do online payments, but again, it's always just you try it, which is what I've been doing. I try it and I say, I don't know if this works. Let me know if it works, and then it comes back and we work it out. So we're all working those things out. Ready Sub has been wonderful, at least for those of us that have been using it. It's been great. The copier situation, I think I was telling you how frustrated we were with that. And that has been, now that the electrical issues are better and fixed, the copiers are working. And really now it's just about all of us learning how to use a new copier. And then of course the air conditioning issues. I have to say I have been listening to air conditioner issues since we got the new air conditioners, and I can't tell you, it's just, we've fixed things. Thank you, Tiffany. Things have got, David has been doing his research, and Tiffany and I walked around the schools, and it is phenomenal the amount of emails that I am not getting on a regular basis. Just like Chuck was saying, I did want to report out a little bit about the greater issues in the state of California. 2 weeks ago, I went to the State Council and the Division Council meetings in Northern California for the California Federation of Teachers. And I want to tell you a couple things. One, the California Federation of Teachers is changing its name to CFT because we are not just the Federation of Teachers, we are also a federation of teachers and classified employees, and we want to make sure that we are acknowledging everyone that's part of our union. Also, that we have a strategic plan, and so the Ojai Federation of Teachers is affiliated with the California Federation of Teachers, or CFT, and then both groups are affiliated with the American Federation of Teachers. So the strategic plan, I want you to know this because I think it's very important to us in Ojai. So they have a plan. It's got 4 points. The first one is the Schools and Communities First initiative. And that initiative is to address adequate funding in public schools. And I think this is important for all of us to know because this initiative will be coming out in the 2020, on the 2020 ballot. And what it is doing is proposing a shift or change in Prop 13, which is why we don't, because our property taxes have been stopped, basically. We pay some, but it only goes up by 1% a year. What they're proposing is that Prop 13 will continue basically for residents, but taxes will increase for California corporations, which will bring in a tremendous amount of funding to school districts and hopefully address the inadequate funding for public schools. There are three other issues. One I'm going to combine. And one is going to push back on the privatization and corporatization of public schools. CFT was instrumental in 2 different initiatives being passed just last Thursday, AB 1505 and AB 1507, which both address charter schools. One gives the school districts the ability to turn down a charter if it affects us financially, which for some school districts like ours, that could be an issue, and we do have to consider that. And the other one addresses 1507 addresses a loophole in the law. And then the last thing, besides that, CFT is addressing inequity in both higher education and in hiring practices in school districts. Hi, Michael, I just realized you were there. Sorry. So, which I think is what we are focusing on as a district. These are issues that we are facing and talking about: charter schools, and equity, and then also just funding. And last, before I go, I want to say one last thing. I have to say that I was so amazed meeting with other union presidents from around the state at the issues that they have and the issues that we have, and I am so grateful to all of you. I just can't tell you. I just kept listening to the way the different groups spoke to one another and the way they talked about their interactions with their board, their interactions with their administrators, and I just kept thinking to myself, wow, that's just not how we work. And I actually had to sort of zip it, because I thought, they're gonna get mad at me or tell me I'm doing my job incorrectly, which I don't believe I am. I believe that we have a great thing here. And I really, really appreciate that we collaborate with one another, we talk to one another, and we are respectful of one another. And with that said, one of you isn't going to be here after our next election, and I would really like to charge you with finding someone who will be running for the school board that has that same mindset and sense of that same value as we do, which is a collaborative nature and respectful in the way they interact with everyone. So, thank you.
Thank you. Great, it's time now for our superintendent's report.
Thank you. Since all of these people did not come to see my report, I will be short, although that would be nice. The first thing I just wanted to share publicly is the great news of our last series of bonds that were sold 2 weeks ago. So we had Series A in 2015, Series B in 2017, and Series C in 2019. And I put for you the true interest cost. So what you can see is our interest rate to us went down significantly. Actually, even from when we were preparing for the sale to the next day, the interest rate went from 2.69 to 2.56, which saved us about $150,000 overnight, because something happened out in the world that caused the rate to go down, which was great for us.
We planned that, right?
We did plan that, right. So
good work.
So that was good. So I just wanted to share, so on the right-hand side, there's the principal to interest repayment ratio. So essentially, for every dollar, how much do we have to repay? So in Series A, for every dollar that we borrowed, over 30 years, we have to repay $1.72. In Series B, it was $1.77, and then in this last Series C, it's only $1.33. So we did a great job in the sales of our bonds. It was a great time. The market was in our favor, and I believe we had a very fortuitous fiscal situation with the final issuance of those bonds. I just had a couple of other things that I wanted to share with you. When I started, we talked about having guiding coalitions in each of our 4 community values: environmental stewardship and regeneration, wellness, creativity, and creating an inclusive culture. So those guiding coalition applications for community, for teachers, for students, hopefully some of our student advisory council members will be on there. Those applications will be going out tomorrow. If I can have an hour at my desk, or maybe on Friday, and then they'll be due November 1st, and we'll have our first series of meetings starting in November. We have our Engage to Impact event on school safety on October 28th, right here in the Chaparral Auditorium. We're excited to talk with the community about best practices, what we're currently doing, and ideas about what we can do in the future. I sent a parent square out yesterday about all of the things that we're currently doing so that people can have kind of a starting place for that discussion. We had an all-staff or an all-teacher in-service day on Monday. Our secondary teachers went to, they got to pick 2 of 3 trainings. They could go to restorative justice, integrating technology, or project-based learning training. And then our elementary teachers went to an all-day toolbox training on social emotional learning. I went to both, Cheryl went to both, and generally we had great feedback from teachers who were excited to have really good, high-quality professional development in all of those areas. So those were all, we had trainers come in from various places for that. Actually, our integrating technology training was great because Mike Volmert, who is a technology director for Rio, is actually substituting for David Rogers, who had his baby last week. And then it was great because he got to do this training for us while he's here working for us for the next month. So that's fortuitous. We've received 2 robotics grants. One of them is for robotics kits at the elementary and middle school. And then we just found out today that we received another robotics grant from College of the Canyon. So we're excited to have our robotics program taking off in elementary and middle school and looking forward to expanding that to the high school. There's lots of discussion out in the community and statewide about the later start time, so we are not exempt from that. We'll be working on the later start time and looking at implementation in 2022. For a large reason for implementing in that year is that's when everyone will be implementing, and so it helps with the sports schedules. We won't be the only ones trying to figure out how to also do after-school activities with the later start time, so everybody will be figuring that out kind of at the same time. And then finally, our student representative, I believe 2 meetings ago, brought to our attention, actually our student award winner.
Yeah,
brought,
Karina.
Yes, brought to our attention that the desire for a gender neutral bathroom at Nordhoff, that is part of our quad redesign, and that should be ready for use in November. So we're excited and wanted to announce that that is something we're working on. And that's it for me.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the charter school petition, and we do have another speaker before Kim, Laura Fulmer.
Okay. I was expecting to wait for everybody. Thank you for letting me go first. I'm Laura Fulmer. I'm the director of Valley Oak Charter School, the district's only charter so far. We're in our 17th year of operation. I just want to explain something about charters. Charters were developed during the outgrowth of the voucher movement. If those of you can throw your minds back there, when people were going, oh, give us some money so we can pay for our private schools, and public schools went, what the heck? And they came up with this concept of, well, maybe what people are looking for is choice. They're looking for some different options in public education. Let's try to create this movement that allows groups of people to come together with a particular focus and try to create a public program based on that focus. My charter only works with families who homeschool. That's it. Unless you want to be directly involved with your child's homeschool education, don't come to me because you don't belong in my charter. OHI doesn't have a program for that. Maybe someday they will. Right now they don't. And that's why our program, small as it is, 75 kids maximum, K through 12, WASC accredited, we just keep chugging along year after year. This program in Summit, obviously there's a need for it. There's an interest in it. Whether this group decides that it's something that they want to move forward with or not is up to you guys. But I'm pointing out that that's what charters are about. They weren't created to say, let's take a bunch of public funds and do something special with it that we particularly like. They were created because there were parents who were saying, hey, my kid's interested in this, or I'm interested in that. How can we have our tax dollars help to fund that? That's what charters are about. People who think that charters are all about private corporations taking public money are looking at a very small percentage of charter school programs. And yes, are there some out there? Absolutely, they're out there. But programs like mine, and from what I've heard, programs like Summit, are not looking for that. They're looking to fill a need that isn't filled by the district. That's the reality of the situation. Now this year, the district is introducing their independent study program, which I personally talked to Andy for several years about, saying, you guys have got to get this. Because I get people coming to my program because it is independent study who don't belong in my program. They're not homeschoolers. They're not interested in homeschooling. They're interested in something other. Now district is offering that something other, and I applaud you putting that together. I think it's a great idea. Having said that, I don't think that it negates the need for you to seriously consider other charters. We're the only charter in the district, and if for no other reason than if you approve another charter, I won't be audited every single year. I honestly think you should look at this very seriously. 17 years of audits, get a little tired of it. The other thing I want to point out, I know there are charters out there who do cherry pick their students. I know that. I'm aware of that. I've been in this movement for a number of years. I want you to know that most of us don't. My student population is 17% special ed. Oops. 17%, which is much higher than districts. Because we don't turn away kids with special needs. That's not what we're about.
Amen.
I just want everybody to look at this honestly with an open mind, and I know that you'll do that because you look at us openly with an open mind every 5 years. We'll be back in a couple of months, guys. Get ready for us. And to once again thank OHI. As Angie said, Angie and I worked at TOPA together. This group is special because you do look at things from the perspective of what's good for our community, not necessarily what's perfect for you, but what's good for the greater good, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Kim, we want you to have the last word, so as speakers come up, we're just going to sneak them in before you. So we'd like to welcome Julie Tumamite.
Good evening, everyone and community. Name is Julie. Oh, hello there. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I represent the local Native Chumash community and those of my relatives who live in Ventura County and Santa Barbara. I've been in this school district ever since my children were little. They're second year in junior college now. I've seen the changes. I've always put myself in a place where we need to learn more about, not the pyramids, how our local government works, how we can invest in local social and environmental justice. OHI is a perfect place for that, and I'm all for people allowing their children to learn the way they learn best. Sometimes I found I give total respect and honor every person who's been a teacher, and all of you who are on this board, to support them in every way we can. It is a hard job. I have the luxury of stepping in for an hour. The classes I don't get to do are 5th grade to 12th. There's just nothing there that includes me. And those, I'd like to see something like that change. And I feel where charter schools can do things like that, it's not part of your curriculum to include that type of work that I do in education. Maybe there can be a chance. But to allow, I have a child with special need, and I made it really, really hard on the district here to make sure that it was taught to the classrooms every single year he was in school. They came in and they talked about autism. So when we learn, as he learned in a different way, in a different fashion, I think charter schools allow the children to have that freedom to learn in a more comfortable, smaller setting. That was a challenge in the public schools, was the amount and the number of students that were in a classroom, and it is very difficult. So I'm just here just to support different ways of learning, because we don't all learn in that same corridor. We need to find different ways to expand and include these generations into what is relevant for them, what is happening in their world, that they can grow into this community. They can see what's happening, they can see the challenges, and if we don't lower the cost of living here, we won't have children in this community. We'll all be priced out. So those are different things that we talk about and worry about, of where our generations are going to
live if we can stay in these communities. So thank you. I'm not going to take up much of your time. I just wanted to just come say hello and thank you for everything. And I'm here to learn also. I've done charter schools, I've done private schools, I've seen the ins and outs of different ways of how people in this system work. The racial issues and other things that we have faced in our schools lately, I believe because there's not enough diversity. There's not enough people that have invested in coming into the schools to talk about the diversity of peoples and cultures. And it doesn't work when it comes from a non-indigenous people of that culture. I've been asked to come when we do the Holocaust, for instance. There's, what grade is that, 11th? Somewhere around there, it's high school. And I thought, what about our Holocaust in our native indigenous communities in the United States? Now, the concentration camps, I'm not going to say that reservations are the same, but it's not a far reach of what happened to the indigenous cultures in the United States when they were forced off their lands and given the blankets and the buffalo killed. And there's a history right there in itself. And where we weren't, as Native peoples in California, exterminated, we died in ways that were inadvertent diseases. They needed us. We were the workforce. So it was our families that built the buildings and the missions. And that's another section I know everybody's working on right now, is how to redesign the curriculum on the California mission systems. So again, I'm here to help. I'm here to be involved and to work wherever I can in all the schools. You know, we want to step back in. I've been doing archaeology for the last 3 years. I want to get back into education with the kids. I miss them. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. And Andy Gilman.
Thank you. 30 seconds only. When I helped start Ventura Charter School, it was a program in the district called Open Classroom. And the idea that we really wanted was very similar to what we're doing now. Is we had a mission, we wanted to grow it into a K-8 school. And our intention was to work with Ventura Unified to have this be one of the jewels in Ventura Unified's offerings to the community. And they saw it as a threat, and so they denied the charter, and then the county approved it, which you probably all know. But my main thought is that I hope that you will think about this as a way of a kind of a partnership, which is easy not to do that. And as was mentioned, the recent legislation makes it easier not to do that. But I would encourage you, because of what's here, is to say, how can this be a kind of a partnership to meet a need where both sides can actually win? And if you look at the number of people who are interested in the charter, half are coming from outside of the district or are in private schools. So that's a way that there's a partnership that really is a kind of a potential. So I hope you think about it in those ways. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. The time has come. Kimberly Rivers. Thank you.
So for the record, my name is Kimberly Rivers. I am a board member of the Summit Charter School, along with Andy Gilman, Thea Wilcox, Dr. Nina Newlight, Paul Royal, and Teresa Zamora. That is the corporation that is hoping to bring this amazing opportunity to this community. I want to thank everybody who's come here tonight. And a lot of the things I wanted to say have been said by other folks. So without further ado, I would like to ask our most important presenters of the evening to bring up our charter school plan. And so, come on up. And then there are a few extra copies as well because Shanahan gets one over here, Mr. Shanahan, on the computer.
Give yours to Thane, Dylan. He needs two.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you, I guess, on November 5th to
To be
answer all your
voted on.
questions. And
But yes,
yes.
That's the plan.
Wonderful. So enjoy your reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrific, thanks. I think it's probably worth noting with everyone here, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert, but my understanding is that the laws, the bills that were signed by the governor in the last week or two apply beginning next year. And so the evaluation of this charter does not include the bills passed by the governor.
By our district.
Right. The approval of this by our district is not impacted by what the state has done in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, just for clarification. Right. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Oh,
The November 5th.
we also need to, if you want to stay for just a second, we need to have a vote on receiving the petition, which we'll do by, well, we need a motion and a second.
I'll move to accept the charter school petition from Summit Charter.
I'll second.
And then we'll do a roll call. Jane?
Aye. Aye.
Aye?
I'm gonna go with a yes.
Very good. And Michael? Aye. Okay, so that's unanimous. The second point is to schedule a public hearing within 30 days, and the November 5th has been proposed. And so likewise, can we have a motion and a second?
I'll move to conduct our meeting, public meeting over the charter on November 5th at 5:30 p.m.
And a second,
Here?
so roll call.
Will it be here or will we go into the?
Here.
Okay, yeah.
Jane?
So I'm not available that date, so I'll say no, not because,
Okay.
actually, I guess I can vote yes.
can vote
because
yes.
I can watch
Right.
watch from afar. I'm in Missouri for, that date, but.
Yeah,
so,
and it's more of a public hearing. We're
Right.
really not,
Okay, so aye.
we're not the stars of that show. Yeah.
Yes.
And Shelley? Yes? Aye?
Yes.
Yes. And Michael? Aye. Now, there's one other point. We're required to have a meeting and a vote within 60 days. Now, we have a meeting scheduled 61 days from today.
So the 60th day is a Sunday.
Right, the 60th day is a Sunday. The 61st day is when we have a meeting
Or
scheduled.
when we have a vote later on the agenda to move to that date on December 15th.
Okay, should we do that then, or should we
Well,
do it now?
So just, we have an agenda item later to move our current December meeting to December 15th because we have, right, yes. Because
15th is on a Sunday.
Right, to December 16th. Because we have a number of things that we have to comply with, including having our first interim report.
It's a very tricky time because the state requires us to have a vote late enough and early enough, and there are only a couple of days in December when we can actually have the meeting. So there are two options there. One would be to modify the date of receiving the petition, or modifying the date of the...
Well, we can negotiate with the petitioners to potentially have a meeting on the 61st date, or later, we can decide if we want to have a meeting earlier than that to decide on the final decision on the charter.
Right.
So we have not yet had a chance to negotiate because we just got it, so
Right.
we can come back.
We
if
can
want.
discuss that on November 5th.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Let's negotiate with the kids. They seem reasonable.
Yeah.
They're hungry.
All right, so those are all the items on the charter, if fine. Thank you.
You did such a good job with them, just showing him around.
very sorry. No problem.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is our annual presentation regarding school suspension and expulsion. So everyone be on your best behavior.
They're all listening really well.
I know that, well, I'm
I got
just
it.
checking to see if anyone was listening.
Just need a second to try and fail to cast. All right. Great.
Kim and those in the back, I'm sorry, we're keeping our meeting going here. Thank you.
So this is our annual required report on suspension and expulsion data. I will say that we changed systems of recording suspension and expulsion, so there's kind of two different data systems that we melded together. We have data from 17-18 and 18-19 in one system, so there are a couple of slides here where we just have those 2 years of data because we weren't able to go back and in an easily way find prior year data. So here's an overall, I don't know what happened to the numbers, but they're on your slide in your thing. So here's an overall look at total incidents. So this includes students who might have been suspended multiple times. So we have students sometimes who will see 3 or 4 suspensions potentially during a year. So each one of those would count towards a new incident. So the first number there is 78 in 15-16. We had a little uptick to 88. In 17-18 we went down to 76. And then in 18-19 we were at 109 incidents. And I'll talk a little bit later about why that happened. But just for context, that 109 incidents out of our total student population is less than half of 1%. So overall, including all the students who were suspended even multiple times, we're still looking at less than half of 1% for a year.
I'm not, what's the methodology? What do you mean?
So if we had, 109 and we had 2,400 students, if we just looked at.
Okay, you
yeah.
mean as a percentage
Yeah,
of the students?
right, yeah. So then looking at the type of incident. So actually, I don't know why it says type of incident, sorry. This is the number of students who were suspended in school, who were just suspended, and who were expelled. So we have 0 students expelled, and you'll see that most of our students are just suspended, and we very rarely use in-school suspension. It's not really much of a viable tool for us, depending on the incident. This is suspensions by grade span, so you'll see that we had a big jump at Nordhoff last year, and I'll show you what accounts for that. Chaparral is relatively stable. Our middle school population is also stable, and then we had our elementary incidents at elementary are kind of highly variable, just depending on. And usually at elementary school, that's where we see students who are suspended multiple times. So we'll have one student who's getting up there. And part of that is because we don't always have a great alternative for students to go someplace else in elementary school. So this is part of why we're doing all of our work with restorative justice and our work with social emotional learning, especially at the early grades and at middle school, so that we can work with students to address these. So those are essentially our pre-suspension tools. Suspension and expulsion are still tools, but restorative justice and social emotional learning come before those tools. This is all of the incidents from 17, 18, 18, 19, and this is not in your packet. This is a new chart. So essentially you can see that our biggest jump were in harassment, and I think that this jump from 2 to 16, from 17, 18 to 18, 19, it's just because we got better at reporting bullying and harassment. And we have some new tools in place so that students can report that. We're also re-looking at that this year to make sure that we have consistent tools for reporting bullying across elementary, middle school, and high school. Caused physical injury was a big jump also, so those are students in fights. Knives went down, and then you'll see the really big jump there is possession of a controlled substance. So that's where we had 38, and that really comes to vaping. So we catch kids for vaping, and in the past we would suspend them. We now have a tool for use before suspension, and that is an online program, kind of an anti-vaping program that they can go to. So in their first offense, they would actually, as part of our work and belief in restorative justice, they would actually go through a program to talk about what are the harmful effects of vaping, et cetera. And then in another incidence, they might be subject to suspension. So instead of, when we didn't have that tool, our only tool was to suspend them.
Do
So.
we have any students who've used that?
One so far.
Mhm.
One?
Yeah.
Mhm. And we're really working collectively on vaping, and you'll see some more information coming out about that. We know it's a very serious issue, so we have this class. We're working on vape sensors. There's a number of things that we're working on. We have the dogs coming to really early in the year so that we can help send the message to students that there are certain items that aren't allowed on campus, drugs, explosive, guns, weapons, etc. So we're working on trying to address that number. The interesting thing is, and this is cut off a little bit on my screen, but the selling of controlled substance each year is only one. So it seems like there's potentially one student we've got that's providing all of these substances.
About monopolies.
Right.
And just to better understand, if a student is caught just off campus selling, that's still under the jurisdiction of the district and they could be suspended for that. Is that correct?
They could be. I think we would look carefully at that incident.
If it falls
depend.
like within our school day, like they're
Yeah.
leaving
Right,
school or
it's
coming
right
to
after
school, then
school,
it counts.
they're-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're ours on their way to school,
That's what I
at
thought.
school, and on their way home from school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's a Saturday or if it's
Right, no, I
it's-
meant
right, yeah.
specifically right after school leaving campus.
So you can kind of see the rest of those: disruption, bowling, one knife incident last year. So, and then suspension by ethnicity. This is just something we always want to make sure that we're tracking. And you can see, I don't think we have any issues with disparity by ethnicity at this time in our suspension
So I
rates.
was actually gonna ask about this. It's required to prove that we're not being inequitable that we're not targeting a certain group?
It's not required, but it's one of the metrics that we look at for a number of
It
different.
seems,
It's actually in
Weird.
the education equity section
Mhm.
of the federal ESSA.
Mhm.
It is a requirement that you're not overly suspending any
Right.
one student group.
Right.
But this looks like it
We
very
are.
closely matches our population.
It does.
Oh, okay.
I'm with you, Jane. It looks a little out of balance to me. Or if I interpreted what you were saying, Jane.
yeah, well, I mean, so we're suspending more white students than Hispanic students and black students. But that made a good point. If we have a higher percentage of white students on campus,
Right.
this is following if we have 40% of our student body is Hispanic, 40% of 74 is around 30, right?
Right.
So-
So in the last year, we're
We're
pretty
better.
much imbalanced with where.
It was this
with-
year.
Right.
That looked out of balance to me, the 17-18 year.
Yeah. But the 18-19 school year is
Right.
reflective of our student population.
Right.
And that's it. Do you have any questions?
So the spike in controlled substances and the vaping, that made absolutely sense to me. I'm concerned about the
Physical injury.
caused personal injury.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that?
That one is broader than just caused physical injury. It also includes like threatened to cause physical
Mhm.
injury. So it's a little bit wider than just getting in a fight, for example. If you threatened somebody, you could be suspended for it. So
Right, which I have to say, we talk a lot about the current culture, not just in Ojai, but in the US. And it seems to me that that's risen everywhere. So of course our children would be reflecting that.
Mm-hmm.
well, that's where we're really looking to restorative justice as our first tool to work with our students and help them work through these problems together so that they don't continue to happen.
It would be interesting you mentioned that sometimes it's the same students over and over again.
True.
I think it would be interesting to get an idea about how many students we're really talking about rather than incidents.
So when we get to see that on the dashboard,
Right.
the dashboard will come out in December for the
Okay.
18-19 year, and we can always look back at last year's data, but that represents, those suspension results they're represented by student. So if a student had 1 suspension, they're counted. If a student had 10 suspensions, they're counted just as 1 student. It's just a percentage of our students, so we'll be able to see that data.
Okay.
It's just an information item.
And next, the presentation regarding the GATE program, Gifted
Yeah.
and Talented.
So there are some new things happening, some changes to some old things that we were doing, and then just some reminders of what we do at middle school and high school to support our gifted and high achieving students. We're really excited about our OEF grant. Thank you to everybody on the OEF board and the grant people for wanting to support the GATE and high achieving students. I was lucky enough to work with Nan Davis a little bit and learn about the GATE Council, the Tri-County GATE Council, and it used to be when we had funding for GATE, we had programming and we had a certification program, and that went away for a little while, and the GATE Council has brought that ability back and for free. So they're working with some teachers who are trained in the curriculum, and in a flipped model, they offer training to teachers, again, for free. So the idea is that you go to 6 meetings with these teachers. They are about once a month through the course of the year. And most of your work is done at home, in the comfort of your own home, doing research, practicing how to make certain lesson plans and activities to support GATE students. But the total time commitment to get the GATE certification is 46 hours. And so I wrote a grant to the OEF group asking to see if they would compensate teachers at their hourly rate, or the hourly rate for extra duty, to support these teachers in working this 46 hours. And so this year it was a little challenging. I was hoping to get 5 teachers this year to go. We did get 2, partially because of the changes in teachers that went to the 6th grade. Those were some teachers that weren't interested in going, and partially because this year you do have to go to Camarillo for those 6 meetings. Once we have trained teachers, our own trained teachers can offer the training. So next year we're looking forward to more teachers taking the opportunity because the meetings will be right here in Ojai. Hopefully OEF can continue to support funding their pay, but we're looking forward to the goal here is over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, having every single 3rd through 5th grade teacher GATE certified, meaning they've had specialized training to understand the GATE mind, the characteristics of GATE students, and how to really change and differentiate lesson plans and activities to meet their needs. And the reason right now we're targeting 3rd to 5th grade teachers is because we do identify GATE students at the end of the 2nd grade school year. And as you'll see, we have at least some opportunities in the middle school and high school for students who are GATE and also high achieving. I cluster high achieving into this because what we see from the research and from really good GATE programs is great GATE programs don't just target GATE students. They usually open the doors for high achieving students as well, and even beyond that. So if a student just wants to challenge themselves and participate, the idea in the future is that we would try to be as inclusive as possible based on the student's interests. So one of the things that's going to happen in the GATE training is our teachers are going to be able to see what a couple teachers are doing in Camarillo. And in addition to some teachers being GATE trained, they have a classroom, a Google Classroom that they have all the GATE students and any high achieving student and any other student who just wants to try to challenge themselves. They have curriculum built through that and activities built through that Google Classroom where any teacher across the district with students during that free time or downtime or after school time, that student can go onto that Google Classroom and access those activities and be challenged. So the way I see the future or the goal for this is that as you might think about that RTI pyramid we talk about sometimes, we have to think about what we're doing in our core every day, all the time, and that's having GATE certified teachers, right? If every day, every 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teacher has the skill set and the understanding and has been trained in how to build activities, they're going to be able to meet the students' needs on a daily basis. And then from there, we want to offer some extra programming. That's where I see potentially down the road building in something like that Google Classroom where there's activities there and easy to find, possibly being coordinated by a GATE coordinator in the district. And then from there, looking at sort of that final step of building something that celebrates all of it. So we've been talking about maybe adding a fair down the road where we get to see the projects that they created and look at those things, and those are some of the things that are being modeled right now by the teachers in Camarillo and that our teachers are going to learn about and see. So we're really excited about that. Does anybody have any questions about that particular initiative or new thing we're doing?
I'm just thrilled that it would be open to anybody who is interested. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I'm just, I mean, when I first was hearing about it, I thought, well, you know, I mean, I don't want to sound sort of like, we want to be able to say that all our teachers are certified, you know, kind of, you know, that it actually has helpful components, because I think our teachers, I mean, we do talk about how our teachers are able to differentiate instruction all the time, but sometimes that ends up, like for one of my children who was in a GATE program, it meant, you know, sort of extra worksheets that were harder. And they were like, well, I'm not interested in doing that. I want to do the easy one, and then I can go read my book.
Well, and that's the exact thing that this GATE certification does for teachers, because that's the misconception sometimes with differentiation, right? You're finished with your work quickly, let's give you more work. And really, truly, when you talk about high achieving, and especially GATE students, what they like is different work, right? And so that's what these teachers are going to be learning is what their needs really are. And then how to meet those needs by creating different lessons and doing slightly different activities with the curriculum they're working with on a day-to-day basis. So I absolutely think you've hit the nail on the head as far as what the issue is with sometimes the way we differentiate for our GATE students.
Okay. And then the second question was, I do know that there were some schools that were more likely to test students, second grade students, for, like there were some schools that were like, well, we don't really have a program, so we're not even testing them. So if we implement something, then we have to make sure we're implementing. It's not a voluntary.
This is a district-wide initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, even if that student doesn't get identified, everybody has access to it. So, I mean, that's the great thing. But you make a great point that we should be being more objective when we consider who we test for second grade. And
is there a need to test? What's
the truly gifted students really do have different strengths and weaknesses, and you often find with a lot of GATE students that they actually struggle in school because of those weaknesses and strengths. And so I think that testing can be very valuable in giving information where the strengths and weaknesses are.
Does the testing provide that?
A
Because
little
my
bit.
understanding was it's just kind of a benchmark and pass or fail. Does it?
There's different way districts we have some autonomy in how we test, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's some
absolutely.
basics, and then we get to also add some. It's not just given to us like this is the GATE test, right? We get to kind of have a lot of say in what that looks like, and whatever we do will
I
be
know students
district-wide.
sometimes don't pass, and so they take a different like they'll,
Yeah.
you know what,
Right.
we want you to take this one or something. 'Cause
Right.
It's different.
Because you can take tests that are more geared toward people who have strengths in visual processing versus people that have better auditory processing. And so, yes, there are tests that are geared toward different strengths that can be utilized. It's done by our school psychologists who have training in all kinds of cognitive testing and do that on a regular basis with our special needs students. So they definitely have the skill set to do a wide range of testing, and it's all within our decisions as to how we go about doing that.
But I still wonder if there's a need. Testing kids just to test strikes me as odd, but also in my experience can be detrimental because it's perceived as I either passed or I failed, and not as this is telling me where my strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm concerned about what we're saying with the test, how that's presented, what the benefit of the testing is. If we are actually using it to differentiate and understand each individual student, great. But if it's just to do a sorting, then I'm questioning that.
So this is part of the development of future plans of the project, right? It's not,
Okay.
right now what we're bringing to you is, yay, our teachers are getting trained, we'll all know how to differentiate for all students, we'll be able to access higher level enriched curriculum, we'll be able to do a number of things, but the mechanics of those things will be coming further in the program once we have a more robust program than a few teachers in training, which is kind of where we are right now.
Right.
So.
My input on that is, I've seen a lot of gate kids who failed because they weren't interested. And knowing why someone's failing, if they are failing, is helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm just, I'm interested in programs, as opposed to, I think the training is great, but at the end of the day, I think we need programs. We need opportunities that are different than the traditional school day if we're gonna do it. When I was a kid, we dissected rats, that was sort of an anatomy thing that, we have never, as long as we've been in the district, we've never had the funds, and as far as I know, it's always just been, we don't offer any gate, so, I'm kind of, I guess, with Shelley in the sense that it's very complicated when you get into the question of who should be able to be in the class. Overall, you'd say anyone, but at the same time, you also want, you want the kids that do feel, sometimes bored, to be able to feel like they can run. And I think that's part of what a GATE program does when it exists. So it sounds very iterative, but it sounds great that we're making progress. I know Nan's been very interested in this for a while.
Absolutely.
That was 2 years
Well,
ago.
and I know a lot of parents who are not in the district who would be very intrigued by a real program, not just we do different kind of project, which I think ties into your project-based learning and those kind of things.
One-to-one devices, it's all connected.
Right.
Okay, so for the second thing here, this is a change. So with the change of our sixth graders going to Matilaha, we had a chance to re-look at how we identify students and what we offer to students who essentially skip a grade in math. So you might remember that in the past, we usually had fifth grade students on the elementary campus going into the sixth grade classroom to receive their math if they were identified to skip a grade in math. And then when they were sixth graders, they were dropped off at Matilaha in the morning to do first period in the seventh grade advanced math course there, and then they'd get bused back to the elementary schools. This was great for those students. Everybody really loves and is typically very successful in that. However, the scheduling was pretty difficult with having, especially the different start times at elementary schools, and then that timing of the bus being dropped off. Sometimes the students were missing some other subject matter in the morning, or they were coming back in math, but then they'd already done their math for the day, so to speak. So it's obviously easier to do that kind of schedule when you're already at Matilaha and everybody's on periods and you're just going to seventh period math when you're a sixth grader. So we took a look at how we can change that to just make it a little bit smoother. And so we worked with our teachers to identify, actually the other thing that we looked at is making sure that we were objectively identifying students. And so we looked at our SBAC scores as well as the STAR math test, which gives a general grade level equivalency for how students are doing in math. And we systematically pulled the names through those numbers and sent them out to teachers, because one of the concerns that had been brought to my attention in the past was that most of it was generated either by teachers saying, I think this kid or two should qualify, or parents advocating for their kids, and that just leaves a whole lot of people out, right? Because unless you know about it, you don't get to participate. So we did this more objective approach. Teachers still have some recommendation pieces to it, and the parents certainly have the say of whether or not they want the child to or not. But in fifth grade right now at the elementary schools, what the students are doing is they're doing their fifth grade math, and then through Moby Max, which is a easy online program for both teachers to monitor but students to utilize independently, they're able to do their sixth grade curriculum. And this is, again, optional. It's their choice. I find that the students who typically are identified and are working in these accelerated math programs, they're really motivated by math. They really enjoy math. It's not typically hard to get them to do math work independently. And so, and that's the profile of the kid who really does benefit from this and enjoys it. So during downtime in class, because a lot of times our GATE and high achieving students finish early when there's something going on in the class, like a math or history lesson,
an activity, they're allowed to go onto a Chromebook and get started on their Moby Max math work. And then, of course, at home, as we sent the paperwork home, we made sure that people knew that this was a commitment of probably 20 to 30 minutes a day for the students to finish the 6th grade math. So upon successful completion of the 6th grade curriculum at the end of this year, these students, when they're 6th graders, will be, during their math section at Matilah, they'll be in a 7th grade advanced class. So, any questions on that?
Questions, in kind of along the same thing we were talking about with GATE. I have found some kids are ready to say, yeah, I want to do that in 5th grade, and some not till 6th grade or 7th grade. Is there just this one narrow time that you can do that, or is there a possibility of?
Great question.
That is a great question. I think that I would need to go back to my teacher team and see what they think. I will tell you the math gets more complex as they get older, right? So doing it independently might be harder as the years go on. But it's certainly something that we can look at and reevaluate.
Because I find I have a kid who did that.
Yeah.
In 7th grade, said, I can't do this and I need to move forward. But it was that same thing where a parent had to advocate. It wasn't, it was very, it was very subjective. It was very not equitable.
Right.
And so I'm curious if there are other students out there who.
We can definitely look at that, and I'm not opposed to, bringing together the teachers and getting their opinions and bringing back some kind of plan or idea. I do want to remind everybody, which is kind of in the next discussion pieces here, that this is skipping a grade. It's not just the advanced classes. So I do want to make sure that everybody knows that even if you're in 6th grade, you still have the option of being in 6th grade advanced math, and so there are still other options for advanced coursework if you didn't get identified in 5th grade for this particular skipping of a grade.
Right.
But again, doesn't mean that we can't look at whether or not there are chances down the road of potentially skipping a grade of math for kids that are excelling.
And it would still be the 8th graders then going to Nordhoff
Correct.
campus for algebra.
Yeah, they would
Well, I
start.
was gonna ask about, that's not in there, but. the
That's
8th
that's
graders
where
go
these
to-
kids
yeah,
would
high
end
school,
up.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and what this does for them in the long run is it means that they can get all the way to taking 2 AP math courses by the time they leave Nordhoff. They can take AP statistics and AP calculus by the time they leave. And so, that's part of the mindfulness of if that's what you want for your child or think that your child needs, that's where this advanced road can get them.
But the idea of having multiple entry points is important. We just this year had to start with make sure we could get this piece. But absolutely having multiple entry points into advanced coursework is important. We don't want it to be like, well, in 5th grade I made this choice, and so now I'm never going to be an advanced student because I didn't know in 5th grade. Or in middle school I had some other issues going on. Maybe I was interested in other things, and now I'm in high school and I'm really college bound and I'm interested in. I can't get into anything because I didn't know, because in middle school I wasn't prepared. So that's ultimately part of this value of inclusion is making sure that there's multiple on-ramps to advance coursework.
And it seems like that ingenuity aspect would be a good tool.
Right.
Absolutely. As we get better at Edgenuity this year, we're just piloting it at the high school in a little tiny spot, but absolutely using technology to provide. So like this year when we let our kids, technology was the only solution we had to let those kids basically skip a grade. And now that we have a solution that's essentially 6-12, we can look at some other options so kids can use technology to enter in at multiple levels.
But it would mostly be, because there's still that, we made the decision, you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna, because I wanna take dance and music, I'm gonna take a math online. We
Right.
wanted to avoid that loss of students, so it's
Mhm.
just an extra course you could take.
Right. Okay, so then moving on to middle school and high school, this is relatively the same as it has been, but I just wanted to kind of highlight what the options are. At Matilah, in the coursework, there's advanced coursework in math and language arts for all grades except for 6th grade English, and that's because of the blocking that we have to do. So there's not the singleton of being able to add the advanced English class, but in 7th and 8th grade, there's advanced math and language arts options. And then, and that is, I know that it sometimes doesn't always feel that way, but it is open to all students. The students, when they come out to to talk about registration and classes they want to take. Every student has the ability to fill out an application to be in an advanced class. I was just recapping with Javier how that process usually goes. He says that they, typically don't have to turn people down, and only when the class is getting really full that they're worried about the number of seats and don't quite have enough kids to open up another section of advanced. That's where sometimes students are not given the option, or things like test scores and things like that might play into how we decide who has priority into the class when seats are full.
I'm assuming that we've solved the problem of there used to be the problem of 8th graders going to Nordhoff for the math class. Couldn't do honors English because they'd miss half of the honors English class in second period, and it was only offered first and second period. I assume that's been...
I haven't heard anything about it, so I would assume too, but I'll check in on it.
Okay.
Because that doesn't seem, it seems like an easy fix.
It used to be an issue. I'm assuming it's been fixed.
I think the good news is I have not heard anything about it.
So then we will
in 3
assume
years
all
of
is
this
well.
role, so
Okay.
hopefully it's been solved. At Nordhoff, we have 12 AP courses. If I'm looking at my notes here and find my numbers, I think it was 7 honors courses that students can take. In addition to that, there's other opportunities. As you know, we were able to offer a few dual enrollment courses last year where students are simultaneously able to get college credit and high school credit. We also have some CTE courses that are articulated, which means the same thing, that they count for college credit. I chatted with Carly just to find out about their processes and whether or not we're really trying to open these courses up to consider more inclusion. She said that their process is that when they gear up for registration in January, they do a lot of announcements through the bulletin, a lot of announcements from the teachers, and basically any student can choose to sign up for the class. What the teachers usually do are they hold these meetings and say, if you want to come learn about 12th grade AP English, come see me on this lunch date, or if you want to learn about AP Calculus, come to this room on this date. And that's when kids can hear about the rigors of the course and kind of make calculated decisions about whether or not they think they're ready for that type of course. She said that they do not have many cases where kids ask to be in a course and they say no. They try to work on kids being in those courses. And then as we were talking, this sort of hot off the press, but as we were talking, we were saying, so what if we're missing kids that, aren't self-selecting to sign up for these AP courses, but we think that they should try one, that they're maybe ready to try one. And so we printed a list of the 8th grade students' ELA SBAC scores. And what she's going to be doing in the department meetings is asking all the teachers to look at the students who have met or exceeded the standard and saying, if one of these kids has not tried at least one AP class, can we encourage them to try an AP or try an honors course and try to push them in that direction. So that's another way of trying to open up that inclusivity, and that's our more objective way of making sure that we're reaching all the kids. Like, do we have English language learners that are falling in that, high level of academic achievement, or do we have students from the low socioeconomic realm who are falling in that meeting and exceeding standards realm that we could pull in because maybe they're not self-selecting to be in these courses because they just don't know enough about them, or they're not thinking about college.
And also getting to those high achieving or those GATE kids that might not be high achieving. Right, because they could be 2 different categories. So those GATE kids that maybe are disengaged or et cetera, trying to really identify them and say, our test scores show us that you are capable, your course selection shows us that you potentially are not working to everything that you could be doing, and we'd like to push you a little bit harder. So it's our way of trying to identify those students as well.
Correct. Any questions or thoughts? Ways we could do it better?
I don't think so. Great
All right.
job.
Well,
thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, local indicators.
Yes. Tiffany, you're gonna. Okay,
Yes.
there I am. I'm gonna step over to the podium as I usually do because it's hard to refer to the.
And do you want the
slide
clicker?
behind
Oh,
I have my good buddy Marilyn Smith here with me because, as you know, she helps with all things LCAP and dashboard and test scores. And
do you want the clicker, or can I just click for you?
You can do it.
Okay, perfect. So this is.
Go ahead.
No, you. You got it.
If you go to let me just start by saying this is just an informational item. There's no action taken on this. We have to post all this by, is it November 1st, Marilyn? But it has to go to all of you as an informational item before we're allowed to post it. So we're bringing you the information. The thing to kind of keep in mind here when you're thinking about the dashboard is we have 8 priorities that local districts have to consider. And some of those are considered local indicators, and you can see that off to the far right. And then some of those are through state indicators, which are like our test scores and suspension rates, because all of those go straight to the state through our CalPAD system, and then they determine the sort of evaluate us on those things. But when it comes to the local things, we evaluate ourselves. So if you go to the next slide, what I want to point out here, again, you can see the indicators. The local ones are the 5 that say standard met. And so I wanted to just emphasize how we get a standard met. Everything that's in this presentation is our evaluation of where we're at with a district. It doesn't matter where we're at as a district. What matters is that we're evaluating it, that we're considering it, that we're thinking about it, and that we kind of are using it as the roadmap of where to go next. So just by doing the evaluations, we get standard mets for all 5 of those local indicators. Okay, so teachers, textbooks, and facilities is one of the areas. This is just really a count of how we're doing. We don't have any issues with those 3 categories. If we did, again, it wouldn't mean that we didn't meet the indicator. It would just mean we need to work on it and find solutions to those things. So this is good news. When it comes to implementation of the state academic standards, what you're going to see if you'll go to the next slide, is that there were sort of 5 areas to choose. And so what we did in all of these next few evaluations is we considered things like how much professional development we've been able to provide our teachers in these areas, how far along we are in the adoptions of the aligned textbooks, and those were the kind of considerations that helped us decide if we were fully implementing or just initially implementing. As you would suspect, with ELA and math, we're the furthest along. We've done the most training with our teachers in Common Core standards. We've adopted all the curriculum that's aligned. We've only just adopted social studies last year. We are finishing a middle school social studies pilot this fall, and then we're piloting science across the district this year. So those are the types of things that we were looking at. Where are we at with those processes to decide where we're at on these things? So
I think it's important to note that there's actually, although you only see 2 there are actually 5.
Correct.
From lowest to highest is exploration and research phase. The second is beginning development. The 3rd stage is initial implementation. The 4th stage is full implementation, and the 5th full implementation and sustainability. So
I'm glad you pointed that out.
And that full document, the full self-reflection tool is in the whole packet, the whole public packet. This is just kind of our taking that and
snapshot.
Yeah.
Right. But it's, those things that say initial are actually in their 3rd phase.
Correct.
Even though it says initial.
Correct. Yes. So we can go to the next one. Again, these are all connected, right? They talk about teacher training, they talk about aligned instructional materials, and again, those were the things that we considered as we evaluated ourselves in these areas. We can move forward to priority 3, unless anybody has any questions on this. Priority 3 is parent engagement, and we considered things like, surveys we might do with families, the changes that Marilyn and I made last year to the LCAP meetings, and having more focused conversations on topics. We, were able to see the forums that we started this year and the coalitions that are beginning, and so those were all the things that we considered as we looked at some of these ratings. Again, initial is the 3rd step. Full implementation is sort of 4 on that scale. So that's where we put ourselves. If you go to the next slide,
Can you actually go back? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But in terms of staff learning about family strength cultures, I don't know if it was here or privately. I've heard some initiatives about possibly teachers going into families' homes. Is that something that's specific to a particularly targeted group, or that's something we're thinking about for next year?
That's our home visits. So we do home visits for students who are at risk of being chronically absent. So it's to exactly kind of that to say, like, what's going on in your family that might be causing you to potentially be chronically absent.
Yeah, and I think it would definitely speak to this particular item here, right? If we're starting to do those sorts of things, I think a lot of what we're doing with restorative justice and community building circles, that's going to be a really great opportunity to just listen and hear from families and take that time to engage with people and listen. So yeah, that's just another step in a direction that would meet that goal. If you go to the next slide, this is really the narrative that kind of describes where we're at. So we, under Tiffany's lead, really worked hard to, move in a direction to welcome parents and welcome students on our campuses with increased signage. We have this new Parent Square two-way communication tool, which is really important for us to be able to hear from parents and then to be able to hear from us. And then, of course, the forums for our community to come together and talk about very specifically how to improve our schools. And then, I think the piece where it comes down to individual families and teachers having the time. I mean, of course they want to take the time, but the time is hard to find. But so training them and giving them tools that would allow them to find the time and a way to get more involved with understanding each individual's family and their concerns. So that's what we'll be looking for, some more growth.
I just wanted, so, as you know, Marilyn, it's always been one of my interests to increase our involvement, our attendance at LCAP. We seem to be just, pushing it all into one lump here when we talk about, full implementation of engagement with the parents. But we're still, when we have targeted presentations, it seems like we get almost no one. I know we did a Title I thing recently, didn't we, over at the high school? Was there any?
Title I meeting?
Yeah. And one of my reactions to Tiffany was, are we purposely trying to prevent people from coming to this because, or not encourage them because it was so dryly written, it was just like, we are having a Title I, and maybe some of that's legally required, but it just seems to me that these are, especially now that we're using Parent Squared, we should just be using, encouraging language and accessible language to explain what we're talking about.
Part of the problem is the mandate, when you deal with the federal government, there are always a lot of mandates, and some of the mandates are verbiage that is not readily accessible to all but very well-educated people.
Yeah.
And so that Title I meeting is a perfect example of that. And we have to send letters out to our English learners, for example, both in English and in Spanish. And they're so, the language again, very obscure.
The Title I meetings, even just the agenda alone of what we have to cover is dictated by the bureaucracy, by the so it is very dry. But I will say this, what we're trying to get from the meetings, the idea is we have these plans, these school plans to use these Title I funds, and while we have to hold these sort of dry meetings and check these things off our lists, the truth is all these other meetings that we are doing equally contribute to the commentaries that then end up in our SIPSA plans, and you'll see it all over our SIPSA plans. So I think that's why we've had to shift away from, yes, we still have to do these to check the boxes, but really it's these other meetings that we're holding that are giving us the most information for what to put in our school plans and what to put in our district plan. Right.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is sort of reverse it, and I wonder if even the LCAP meetings can be presented in a way that's more enticing. Apparently there's a lot of interest in people showing up in meetings to talk broadly about education. LCAP's not that different than that. It's really not all that different from asking people, what's the best, how do we best address the needs of the students in our district? And, we had all that interest over the summer. I'm just
But those really are LCAP meetings. We're just not calling them that anymore.
We call them that for that very reason. It sounds dry.
Well, that's fine. That's what I'm saying. So they count as LCAP?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Right. Even the
more of the same.
Impact.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. So, but like Title I's, that Title I meeting still had to happen, even though we're doing all these other things that really are truly LCAP meetings and really truly Title I and cite SIPSA plan meetings, essentially. So
Can you add something to them, like, something that's
Like a
in
Can we bait and
headline.
switch people?
music and dance and,
Yeah.
things that,
Yeah.
would, food that.
So, I mean, what we want to do is put our efforts into these kind of big, broad community meetings and not try and like gussy up the Title I meeting just because we have to, like, the Title I meeting is essentially a checkbox and we are happy when people come, but it's not really ever going to be what when we can control a meeting and we can put together the agenda and we can make it engaging and we can ask people questions about what do you believe in school safety, where do you think our money should go around these school safety plan, all of those kinds of things. That really is the information. So the Title I meeting is that, I mean, I would rather put the limited resources that we have into the meetings where we can ask what we want to ask instead of what's on a predictated agenda.
exactly.
So, but that's kind of the trade-off that we've made at this point.
Okay, so the next sort of evaluation is about building partnerships for student outcomes, and again, that's what we're on? Yeah. That's where we've sort of rated ourselves, but again, if you go to the next slide, this is really the narrative behind this. So we've taken the steps to increase the partnerships, again, through these parent nights and forums. Again, I'm going to refer back to the restorative justice community building circles. I think that that's an exciting next step. We want to involve parents in that. We want to involve families. I don't know if any of you had the chance yet in any kind of meeting to participate in a community circle. I know we saw one of them at our Engaged to Impact with some students, but the whole idea there is that these community building circles are about listening to each other. Mm-hmm. And you can do them on any kind of topic. The idea is the rounds, each round is like driven by like a question or a topic, and you listen to everybody in the group, and that's where we're going to really learn the most. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that throughout the year. Parents
we also have increased participation in our standard meetings, right? Our back to school night meetings, our Ranger Roundup. We've had much more participation in those because we've been able to communicate to parents in a consistent way about what's happening and how to attend those meetings. So
exactly. So the increased communication with Parent Square has really added to our ability to bring more people into our meetings and into our activities and our parent events. One of the things was about making sure families know that they can advocate for themselves and they know about their rights. And so one of the things that actually came through the FPM audit last year was creating more documentation. So on more of our documents, making sure that people are aware of their rights, and especially how they can appeal when they don't feel like something has happened correctly. So we are trying to work on that more as well. Seeking input for decision making, again, just falls into a lot of these same conversations that we're having. Again, here's how we rated ourselves, and a small narrative, again, referring to our Engaged to Impact series. And then we're excited to move into these coalitions, which will continue to allow us to seek input. Okay, so the next priority is school climate. Primarily, I would say the biggest tool that districts use for this, and it's encouraged in the state, is the California Healthy Kids Survey. We give it every other year to 7th, 9th, and 11th graders. It gives us a lot of information. I think the overall thing that it gives us is this school climate index. Both our middle school and high school are above average when it comes to their school index, school climate index. However, we know, and Chaparral's not included because they didn't have enough people take the survey to have statistically significant data to use. But we know, we know though through anecdotal information, observational information, suspension data, things like that, that we definitely have things that we want to work on in our district when it comes to increasing our climates in our schools. And I think there's a next slide here that talks about the things that we're working on, like improving cultural literacy across our campuses, increasing student wellness, increasing student engagement, and then we know that the vaping devices has been a big problem, so we're looking at decreasing the use of those. So again, all of the initiatives that we've been talking about are to try to make those things happen.
Cheryl, when is that test or survey given?
So it's going to be given this year, and usually we've tried to give it like around November, but it can be given anytime throughout this 19-20 year.
The other thing that Tiffany and I were just talking about is creating our own survey, like maybe through a Google form to hand out to our students, because we can do more students and more grades by taking a look at our vision over there in the corner and turning that into a survey using kind of a Likert scale. Like I think, what does the first one say on there? I feel safe at school, or I feel
It feels good to be here.
It feels good to be here. So it feels good to be here. 1 to 5. How true is that statement, right? So if we start to look at an evaluation tool that directly ties into all of those things that we've stated in our vision, then we can really use that to determine how we're doing as we make progress through these initiatives like restorative justice and social emotional learning and all those things.
Well, and it's interesting because, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I just want to go back to 6. When I just was, just in terms of the consistency of the report, how come there wasn't a self-evaluation under 6? You know, there's like the
Because the evaluation tool was the Chick survey.
okay, so we don't interpret that ourselves. We just take the survey.
Well, I gave you the data that
Right.
came from the survey. Yeah. The other ones, these were tools that the CDE gives us directly, right in you see the sort of raw version of the tool. They don't give us a tool for school climate. They tell us that we should use the Chicks tool. We don't have to, but they recommend it, and then we are also able to use other tools. Or other, measurements like suspension data, for example, or in fact, with priority 6, this is the only one that has a local and a state indicator because suspension rate is factored into it as a priority. So there's more data you can look at to determine how we're doing. Go ahead.
It's just kind of interesting that on that one subject we ask the students, but then we're not doing. You could, for example, whether the course of study is sufficiently broad and interesting, you could also conduct a survey of your students. You could use a survey for every one of these. So it's just interesting to me that for school climate, we do the survey and that's it. But everything else, we kind of do our own interpretation of where we think we are. It's interesting.
And parents.
Yeah.
I think parents.
We can do parents, and we've tried to get parents to fill out, there's a Chicks version for parents, and we've sent out links through our portals, and unfortunately haven't gotten back enough participation to have statistically significant data. But yeah, parent involvement in those surveys would be helpful.
And the other thing is we only survey grades 7 and
7, 9, 11.
7, 9, 11, of course.
And we don't survey grade 5. So we don't have, we could give the Chicks, but it's active consent. And so we wouldn't get the broad demographic as if when you have passive consent, you get a much broader demographic. So with active consent, you just don't get what you need. So we've talked about creating our own survey for 5th grade so that we have something in the elementary realm.
We'll be working on our own survey that'll include broadly, right? So it'll relate to the vision, and we can give it versions of it at every grade.
Sure.
And we can use that data in any one of these priority areas.
When you say passive and active consent, what do you mean?
Well, passive consent meaning everyone takes it unless the parent opts the child out.
Right.
The child can opt out as well.
But there's the law is somehow different between the 7th grader and the 5th grader?
Yes, you cannot have passive consent in 5th grade.
Got it.
And because the Healthy Kids data goes up to the state, right? Like, so they get that data also, right? So whereas our own local survey is just us, so we control that. But the state, for the data to go up to the state for statewide use and whatever.
Our county has
database
access to it as well.
Right.
Any other thoughts on that?
Question for you, Cheryl, had to do with the reason that I asked when in the year that we offer it is I wonder if we get results at different times of the year.
That's a good point.
And if it would be worth, taking the pulse a couple of times a year to find out not just the general climate, but are there pockets of time that we really need to focus on?
It would be a little difficult to give it more than once. It's a very rigorous test. I think it takes like an hour. It does disrupt the day. It's got a lot of questions. It's costly. It does cost our.
For our survey, we'll be giving it at least twice.
Yeah, and ours will be much
just a brief
easier.
Yeah.
to take.
Well, and it also, you think about like inclusivity and feeling like your campus, you know, you might feel very differently when you've been there 5 months
Right.
versus if you've been there
That's a
2
good point.
months. You know,
Right.
you have more friends, oh, now you get your schedule, you're not as thrown.
See, and I was thinking just the opposite. I'm really excited to be here. It's super good to be here, all is well, and
So the takeaway from this is that we've been using essentially the minimum available tool, and we will be adding our own tools on top of this so that we can refine our data collection and better address the needs of students.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to mention was that our student advisory council, we were talking about this a little bit, because we were talking about you had asked me to ask them if they wanted to be part of those 4 groups, and so, you know, I said, wouldn't it be interesting if you guys could help the like, do the students even know
Not yet.
that we want them to feel this way? And do they feel that way? And if they don't, how can we help them feel that way? You know, but
that survey will
So
help get
that's
that
part of the
out
survey
for
is really
kids,
going to be our
right.
student implementation tool for this. Yeah.
And then the last thing here is priority 7, and to echo what Kevin was saying, we could certainly create a survey on this and add that as one of our measurement tools. Right now, we're just looking at how many students are in certain courses, what the master schedule has to offer, is it a broad offering, you know, what are our policies for prerequisites, are we making it so less kids can get in, or are we being more inclusive with our policies? So that's what we looked at. You know, the summary overall is kind of what I was sharing earlier, right? We know that we have, in addition to the core coursework, we have lots of AP offerings, lots of honors offerings. We have really 8 pathways at the high school level, and did I include the middle school level on here?
7.
7 pathways, which is really amazing across the district, across the county. Most small schools do not have that many pathways at all. So
Most schools have 5 to 6.
5 to 6, right? And so to have that many for a small high school is great. So, and again, we're looking at those policies for how to ensure greater access into rigorous coursework, like the discussion I was having with Carly, for example, and us deciding to pull those test scores of 8th graders. We do know that scheduling conflicts are barriers, but really I think the biggest barrier is the academic achievement of our students, right? So when I'm talking about students earlier who are self-selecting to be in these more rigorous classes by either filling out an application or you know, going in and meeting with that teacher to find out about their class, the student has to have confidence in the first place that they're ready for that course. And when we know that we have 70%-ish of students, you know, not meeting the standards in math in our test scores, and you know, a little more than 50% not meeting the language arts scores, that becomes a barrier, right? Because they're not feeling academically prepared to try more rigorous coursework. And so, you know, we feel that the actions that we're doing, the new actions that we're moving into to ensure more access is really geared around just increasing that overall academic achievement of all of our students. Of course, we're really excited about the continuing PLC work that's happening. We're sending lots of people to conferences this year, and every single principal is participating in a network at the county office where they're going to several meetings. In fact, every single principal was there today to learn more about PLC work and to bring it back into their schools. We're also excited about...
Can I actually ask you about that?
Yeah.
On page 19 of 19 under number 4 in response to the results of the tool.
Yeah.
You said we are establishing PLCs. I mean, shouldn't that be we have established? I mean,
Well, we've established a professional learning community in elementary for sure. We have really only started to begin the work in middle school this year
And
and
not
high
so
school.
much at high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're still establishing it. Yeah. And then I did put this systematic intervention in there. We're doing quite a lot with intervention, which we brought to you guys before, but the new thing is the Sunday system that we're able to pilot really broadly at Miners Oaks with our CSI money, and it's going very well. We're very excited about it, so we're looking for how we can expand that to all schools in future years. Again, to just work on that overall academic achievement for all students. And then the last thing is I put Edgenuity on there. That's just one example, but the more software we have out there, the more we will be able to open access, especially when one of the barriers we know is scheduling conflicts. When 2 singleton classes are offered the same period and students can't take it, they now have this Edgenuity option to take more advanced coursework if they can't fit it in their schedule. So, any last thoughts?
Any comments? Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
And Angie, would now be a good time for your comments, or did you? Okay.
Thank you for letting me speak again.
Sure.
I just wanted to note two things. One, when you were talking about school climate, and you're referring to our new mission statement, what is that called? It's a
Vision.
Vision. It's got a name though. Anyway, I noticed that you weren't talking about. You talked about the students taking the survey, but I think that when you do a survey, you should be asking the teachers and classified staff and everyone who works there what the school climate is. I think that's really important, and I didn't want you to not note that. And then the other thing was just when we talk about, you were talking about project-based learning and gifted children, and one of the things that's so hard for me is the lack of surface learning in our schools, because that was an extraordinary way for kids to really take off.
A
And
lack of
service learning. We used to do service learning in all of the schools, and we let that go with No Child Left Behind, and it's pretty sad because it was an opportunity for children to really focus in and go with it, no matter with the topic, no matter what their skill level is and academic level. So I would love it if we could focus back on that a little bit.
Great ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have something to say about the logo?
No, I just was going to point out that we have the kids in the center, and then we have sort of a more teacher focused on the outside and the petals. And so that was what I was pointing out. It's like if you have the logo and you're focusing on the center for the children, and you're talking about the greater community, and yet we're missing the petals when we do school climate. It's just one point that sort of struck me.
And to echo what you're saying, really teachers can comment on how they feel we're doing or what they observe when it comes to every single piece of that vision, right? So I think you're absolutely right that we should be, when we create the survey, we should create it for
the.
and
Right.
the whole thing is
And
student-centered, by the way. Everything is from a
Teachers,
student's
parents.
point of view.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
every item. It's the
Yes.
center is really just our kind of our social emotional, our kind of how are the students feeling, and then the outside is really the academics, and then the outer edge is kind of what's the context of the community.
That's the academic.
A very
and then
good
this is
point
the
on the
community.
survey.
Yeah,
for sure.
initially, it's just that when we were first discussing that, we talked about it being sort of, the center was the student center, then the school community, and then our values at large in our community
Sure.
was the outer part.
Yep.
And that, it just struck me as you were talking that we were missing all those adults that are engaging and working with children.
Right. Thank you. So usually we do the consent calendar at the end, but we've got it kind of in the middle. Are there any comments, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Jane?
Yes?
Shelley? Yep. Dane, yes? Yes. Michael?
Michael? Oh,
On the consent calendar? Yes. Great. Thank you. All right.
We're gonna trick you and say Michael, and when you say yes, we'll go, thank you for the vote.
All right, human resources, this is a point on the healthcare technician. Tiffany, do you want to?
So essentially, and Barbie couldn't be here tonight, so I'll take this item. This is consideration of approval of a new position which is a healthcare technician. We previously had a half-time registered nurse. We've flown the position 3 times. We have not been able to find anyone who met our qualifications and was willing to work half-time, no benefits, et cetera. So we had to put our heads together about a month ago and try and think about how we have a need immediately to serve students, and so how we could kind of serve the students who have needs that need to be taken care of immediately, diabetes and so forth. And so this was our next best option, which is to have an LVN, and for the same amount of money to be able to up the hours, include benefits, and have really a lower
qualification, minimum entry qualification, and then to have them report to a qualified nurse who's a consultant. So that's our plan. Just as a side note, it's very difficult to find school nurses because you're required to get additional training beyond what you would get as a registered nurse. And in general, you make less money. So we ask you to go to school for a longer amount of time, and yet we pay you less for doing so. And so it's not just us, it's everyone across the board. The requirements for school nurses are prohibitive from finding many qualified candidates. So the LVN will be available on site. It's a district-wide position, and there will be a consulting RN available.
And assuming they would go to different sites for different student needs.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And do
Any
we
other
have
comment?
the consultant lined up?
We're in the
Yeah, we have a
process.
couple of
Yep.
people.
Once we
Yeah.
have this, that's kind of the next steps.
I'll move to approve the establishment of a new position, healthcare technician.
I will second.
Great, roll call vote, Jane?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, Thane, yes?
Yes?
Michael?
Yeah.
Great, that's unanimous. Moving to item C, the resolution 1920-08, sufficiency of textbooks. This is the Williams Act. We do this every year. We need a public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We need a roll call vote to open it, so Jane,
Yes?
Shelley?
Yes.
Dane, yes?
I'm gonna go no.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, we're gonna win without you, Kevin. All right, Michael? Yes,
Yeah.
I heard a yes, so that's unanimous. Any comments? Great, is there a motion to
I'll
close?
move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, Jane?
Yes?
Yes.
Dane, yes?
Kevin, yes?
Michael?
Yeah, Michael. Michael, yes.
That is unanimous. Moving on to
Yeah,
our,
well,
You need to
we
approve
actually have to
resolution.
we need to approve the resolution. Do we have a motion?
Well, actually, can I just ask a quick question? We've solved the AP European history issue, right, with the.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if that was actually the issue. It was that the other history textbooks were on back order.
Right.
But everything's in. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Jane?
Yes?
Yes.
Shelley? Dane, yes? Kevin?
Yes?
Michael?
Michael, yes.
Wonderful. That's unanimous. Now we're moving on to our Measure J update.
With that, I would like to invite Alan up. Adam is off tonight, and so Alan will be our representative for Measure J this evening.
Great, it's great to be here. I noticed the room isn't as full as when I first got here, so maybe we need to punch up these Measure J reports a little bit. But I think I'd like to just start with the PowerPoint, and then we'll go into some of the other stuff. So I just want to show you some of the things that have been happening. There was a long delay on getting the right equipment in place to be able to place these panels on the ends of the gym in one solid piece. And but they finally got it done on the 12th of October. The shredder arrived. They got all the pieces up there. They'll complete installing all of those pieces this week. And
Looks beautiful.
yeah,
Pretty
so that's
cool.
gonna,
Cool
it's
picture.
pretty awesome to think about that 130-foot long span on that radius, all being one piece, so it can't possibly leak. So, anyway, so that, we'll go next, so, and this just shows, for some reason that slides sideways. Yeah, it just shows them being placed.
Well, look how cool it would look if it were sideways.
Yeah.
This
yeah.
were a silo of some kind.
I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, that's a big change order when they went.
Okay, so we have a couple more pictures. I'm not sure why those are
I'm
not
sorry,
that way
it's
on mine.
because you sent me a PowerPoint, and in order to project it, it's in Google Slides, and so somehow in the
So
transition
Google
from
Slides
your
shifted it.
PowerPoint, but I can only
Okay.
cast Google Slides
All right.
at this,
Well,
at my skill level.
on the far right, you see the footings that are being, where the new lockers are gonna go in. This is on the boys' side. Also on the middle, that's the boys' side, and that is the entrance. If you turn sideways, you can kind of see that's the entrance on the west side of the gym. And on the east side of the gym is the girls' locker room, and that's the process of being poured. There's mud being poured over that rebar as you see that. So, okay. Well, and then this is inside. I took this picture today. This is inside the girls' locker room with the shower there, and you see that the shower on the far left side is a white tile or gray tile. Compared to the black, and that's looking really sharp. And then the coach's bath and shower is all the gray tile.
We didn't have a coach's shower before, did we?
We did.
Wait a
We did, yeah, it was used as a storage locker. This picture is not about the panels, this picture is about the fascia, because we're gonna talk about a change order in a minute that covers this. So what we're going to do, that fascia board and the soffit panels underneath it that are horizontal are going to be repaired. And we're going to cover that fascia board with a strip of the red metal, and so that'll all look matching, instead of having like a painted yellow board there or something, and that board needs to be covered and that anyway.
You're talking about the top of the picture, right? Where it's
Correct,
like
I'm talking about that
the
black
peeled, yes.
peeled
Right
up
here.
thing, yeah, that's the fascia board, and we're
And
gonna
then
cover
right
that with a wrap from the metal flashing. And then you see on the far right picture, the side wall there are 4 of those, obviously one at each end of the clear story. And those boards are completely rotted out. And during the original discussion about what are we gonna do with the gym roof, they said, yeah, we need to do something there, but they didn't decide what, so they didn't do anything. So there was nothing in the plans for what to do about the ends of those. So we have the other part of the change order is to repair those, the ends of those clear stories and get new wood up there. Once this roof is up there, and it's as thin as a Coke can. I mean, it's really thin metal, it's 24 gauge. And so once it's up there, we're not allowed on that roof. Because if you dent it or tweak it or something, then that's the spot where it's gonna eventually rust and leak and have problems. So we wanna fix it before we're done. And this is another part of the fascia, and if you see here, when we pulled the old flashing off of the roof, we discovered that we thought this would be one board, one fascia board. It's not, it's 2 boards. There's a gap in here, water and stuff can get in there, so we're gonna cover that with the metal flashing also. That's all part of that
Change order,
change order that we're looking at, yeah.
24 grand or something.
In addition, the locker room, because that's the locker rooms, so there's a gutter on 3 sides, a metal gutter, and that will also be the red, kind of matching everything else. So, and that.
So Javier, you don't get to change the colors of the school.
Yeah. Well, as long as one of them's red, I'm okay. Yeah, so, and then we have concrete going in again, and a couple more sideways pictures. This is at Nordhoff. We've moved to Nordhoff now. This is in the quad, and on the far left, you see that we just have the rebar, and then in the middle, you see people pouring concrete on top of the rebar, and on the far right, if you turn your head sideways, you can see that that's that little gathering area that's on the northeast corner of the quad for that. And then this is a new concrete pour we did this week. We're still continuing to pour, maybe one more pour Friday. But if you're standing at the northwest corner near where the snack bar is, you see that on the far left, and then the walkway going up the center of the quad. So that's been exciting. This quad was scheduled to be done the end of October, about November 1st. Now we're looking at maybe November 8th. We lost about a week just because the compaction underneath that concrete failed the test 4 times, and we finally got it right. So, so we got some good solid compaction over there.
Can I ask about the timeline for the gym, the Matilla Hall?
Yeah, that's also November 8th, and I'll kind of get to that in
Okay.
the rest of it. So yeah, so here's the going on to Miners Oaks Elementary. We did the painting at that school, came out really great. But there was one wall on the custodian's closet that has completely disintegrated. All the wood was rotted out, so we had to replace that. You see the framed wood. You see above where we replaced framing on the left side of those 2 pictures. And then on the right, you see that it's been plastered and repaired, ready to paint. That'll be the last thing that we do to finish that. So that'll just kind of wrap up that part of the presentation, and we'll go on.
We'll just show you. You can talk about the summit.
Yeah.
While we're in.
Yeah, I took up the summit because you asked me to check on some things there, but we can talk about that another time.
We don't have an action item, but you can see we did open up the wall and looked, and one of the portables is
Yeah,
problematic.
room 5 west wall pretty much is a total do-over.
So.
All right, so then moving on to this report that we prepared, just kind of giving the update. We have some updates to the update because the update was done 2 weeks before this meeting because there was another meeting we had to get ready for. So anyway, Nordhoff High School Library, the bid opening was scheduled for October 9th. We did that. Tony Vaca, you have a thing to approve for that. Tony Vaca was the low bidder, and we're real pleased about that. We like working with Tony. And he was helpful in other aspects of that project the first time we bid it. So, and then in the quad, I mentioned that the completion date is now roughly November 8th. Like I said, we lost about a week just to do some compaction issues, but we did get that corrected. And our DSA inspector, Frank Coughlin, has been awesome at working with this contractor, because this contractor is somebody you kind of have to keep a watch on. You kind of stay on top of him, because and Frank's been doing a great job of that. The work's coming out awesome, but we just have to make sure that they dot the i's and cross the t's. Effluent drainage, that's all been taken, under work going on.
Can I just quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Is everyone comfortable, or is anyone boiling hot like I am?
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, there's some drainage around the F-wing, and we've got some bids and things on that going now. Matilaha Gym, we talked about that. So EJS is the contractor for the Matilaha Gym. EJS is also the contractor who won the Matilaha Kitchen. So it's kind of great, because first of all, we like working with EJS. They've been good to work with. They're honest people. And but we also can say, you got to finish this before you can start that. And we need that done by November 8th, because we need this space that you're occupying for your construction stuff for our temporary serving center when the kitchen goes down. So it gives us a pretty good hammer to work with them on that, and Paul's been cooperative. We've been doing a lot of work on the kitchen upgrades and design. San Antonio parking lot went today to DSA for preliminary review. We won't hear back on that for a few more days. We've also talked with people about the San Antonio lunch shelter. Miners Oaks flooring. We have 2 classrooms that we're putting flooring in, one with carpet, one with LV, the luxury vinyl tiles, as a test, so that we can kind of see where we want to go with flooring for the 2020 summer.
Is that what we talked about, possibly testing?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I think we did talk about that
Yeah, we
last
just
time.
picked out colors last week, I think.
Yeah, and we have some exciting things happening at Miners Oaks with the front entry, with the new hallway that's being put in. That's going to really help with security for this school. People have to come in through the office in much the same way that they do at Miramonte.
I stopped by Miners Oaks to try and understand that, and I'm lost. I hope that you'll help us understand what that is.
We're definitely going to need a little bit better signage for what's going to happen there. But if you saw in the middle of the administration building, there's what is in a flower bed. There's now a cutout, and we're going to pour a concrete walkway there. That's going to go up to where it's now a window that's going to become a door. And once you go in that door, that will be the main entrance. So once the students are in the school, they can lock the entry gates. Everything has to go through the hallway and then when you go in that door, you are in a hallway that is adjacent to the office, and there's a window, and you'll be able to talk to the people. And we talked about maybe having a door you buzz in. They thought that was a little too much like a prison, so we're just going to leave it open. But nobody can go in through the, you go in through that hallway, and you have to go by the office.
Did Captain Freihoff tell us that that's not the safest way, that we want to be able to have free students being able
So our elementary schools are fenced, and we do have entry access at our elementary schools. But the issue at Miners Oaks is really that the office is not connected. So for the office to get out, you have to go essentially out the opposite side of the parking lot, and then you have to go around to the gate. Or if somebody comes in the gates, the office can't see them because they can't see through the walls. And so it's really a visibility issue, but I'm looking forward to our security engineering expert walking every single site with us and providing us with a report that says, here are the, ranked 1, 2, 3, these are the things that we think every site would need for security.
Yeah.
So,
And that was
Because I know
one
there
thing.
was a big, hubbub down in LA about this campus is now putting up fencing, and people have been using it as a park. But, I mean, from my understanding, both Parkland and Sandy Hook have this one entry. It doesn't make it safer just because you're coming in through the office. I mean, this sounds horrific, but you just shoot the one office person and you're inside and then everyone's locked inside.
So this is, right, so this is really though, for the office, it's even about just people coming into the office and being able to find the office being able to kind of see. It's less about kind of broad threats to the campus, and it's more about just day-to-day operations of people being able to come onto
It
campus.
is kind of in an awkward spot.
I've never
for-
understood Miners Oaks,
Yeah.
how to get in or out.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily related to
I
the.
think Teresa and Morden's main thing is that we don't know people can come onto campus and we have no idea.
Right.
I think what might be different though is, I'm trying to think, all our elementary schools have places to run away.
Right.
In the back or the sides. They're
They
not,
have fences around them all.
So we'll be bringing to you an item
But
about
some of
like
them are a
all of
long
these
way
reports
away.
and all of these safety, so potentially after we've got these reports done, we
I'm
can
just
come
making
back
sure
and
we
discuss
think
this.
about that before we
Yeah.
spend money on.
And thank you,
We are.
Jane.
And
for
actually,
bringing
Adam
that.
and Alan are part of this work that we're doing. They're gonna go on those safety walks with us and be part of that assessment team.
Last thing at Miners Oaks is that we are bidding the HVAC for replacement during the Christmas break. For the ground units, there's 13 ground units there, much the same as we did at Miramonte with 14 units. And we had the job walk yesterday. We had 3 contractors. One of them is SiteLogic that won the bid at Miners Oaks, and the other 2 were Reed and then Lance at Forest Air. So we'll be getting that bid closes October 30th. You have a list of completed projects there. I want to add to that list the roofing at A Place to Grow. And that roof was completely replaced under warranty. It was in pretty sad shape, and they gave us a bid for, I think, $130,000 to replace that roof. And we checked and we said, wait a minute, that roof's only 5 years old. It should be under warranty. And they said, oh yeah. And so we worked that out with them and they replaced it for free. So that was great. And then just a couple more things I wanted, while we're talking about the HVAC at Miners Oaks, I want to tell you at Miramonte, Catherine White let us know in an email that when they came back and the HVAC was working there, they came back when school started, she had one of the teachers tell her, the air conditioner came on while I was teaching, and it was so quiet I almost cried. So they're very happy. And let's see, so yeah, for the future, we are working on budget numbers that we'll bring next month. So we're kind of revamping everything that you approved last year on the Measure J budgets. We'll bring you budgets for this year going forward to say, and we've talked with all the principals to say, okay, is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that is no longer a priority? Is there something that that should be moved up on priority? And so we have those conversations already, and we're taking that into consideration as we go through the budget and say, well, what was done and what's left to do, and what should we be doing this year? So you'll see that in November, and hopefully in the near future we'll be talking about solar. So we've got some exciting plans there. I've been doing a lot of research on that. So that is the update. Are there any questions?
Looking at the contracts, the different contracts, are those typically prepared by the construction company?
No, we do the contracts.
Why, do you know why we typically, I typically see contracts with respect to attorney's fees putting to the losing party the attorney's fees of the winning party. It seems to be a good way to sort of force people to act reasonably. And it seems like these contracts typically just have each party bearing their own attorney's fees. And I think we should consider changing that.
I'll make a note of that.
is there also, and I haven't looked at these lately, is there arbitration language?
No.
in there as well?
I didn't see arbitration language.
I think there is, but I'll check it.
Yeah. I'd say generally
not as
arbitration.
binding, but it's-
Arbitration's probably a good idea. It's usually pretty streamlined.
Yeah.
And maybe not binding, but at least to have a discussion.
Is there, initial step, and you can do binding or non-binding, but, yeah. All right, good point.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Kevin.
Are there specific comments or any opposition to taking 2 through 5 together? on the votes for these are big deals. We're talking about approving the project for the Matilaha Dining Hall at a cost of almost $3 million, and the Nordhoff Library project for a total cost of almost $3 million.
I might mention that both of those things we had on our budget for Measure J. The dining hall was under budget by about the same amount that Nordhoff was over budget. So pretty close to a wash.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed these at length before, but I think it's worth noting that these are very large and important projects for the district.
I will mention too, when we talk about Nordhoff, we bid that, if you remember, this spring, and we came in with a bid that was substantially over $900,000 or so more than what we had in the budget. And we said, okay, let's split the project into just the quad and just the building. And then we made some revisions to the building to try to value engineer that. The total of the quad and the new bid that you're looking at tonight for Nordhoff is $837,000 less than the total of what it was in the spring for both together.
Right, so pretty much back to where we started.
Yeah, we're a lot closer to where we were before, but yeah, it was a good move to do that.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, I think it's obvious, but, one part of all this is we rely on others to do things like make sure that we get information out to the world as widely as we can and get as many bids as we possibly can on every project, and then we accept the low bid and it is what it is, so.
Yeah.
We had a good number of bids on each of these.
We had 5 bidders on Nordhoff and 4 on Matilaha.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
In good shape.
That's great. All right, do we have?
I'll move to approve all 4 items 2 through 5.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Jane?
Yes?
Shelley? Dane, yes?
Yes.
Michael?
Yeah.
Wonderful, that's unanimous. Moving on to the second reading of the board policies.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this is the second reading of the board policies. We took out a couple that we were still evaluating, the CTE, the gifts. Those were 2 that we took out, and so these are the remaining ones that, with your comments and everything that we've made a change to, is in green.
Great, and we need to get those others back on the agenda.
Yep, they'll be coming in the future. I also met with John Walker today. We have a whole nother batch to come to you in the future. So we actually may consider just bringing a couple each time so that we don't have a big chunk.
Sure.
So you should see a few policies on each agenda.
You're on out,
Right.
Great, so with those changes,
I actually just have a couple
Yeah.
comments or questions on page 4 of 7, 8E2. The chickenpox vaccine, what if they had chickenpox?
oh, this is immunizations.
Right,
This is
I'm
the
sorry,
next
that's the
item.
next one? All right,
Yeah.
sorry.
Do we have a motion to approve the second reading of the October policies with the deletions and changes?
I'll move to approve the second reading. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the second reading of the board policies.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, Jane?
Yes?
Shelley?
Yes.
Dane, yes?
Yes.
Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific, that's unanimous. All right, comments, Jane, on immunizations?
Right, so any clue?
We've always been able to accept a doctor's note in the past when a student has already had a virus and that they'd be immune. And there's also a way to actually test titers of whether or not you're immune to certain infections. And so in the past, we've always been able to accept a doctor's note saying that the person has the titers that prove that they're still immune to the whatever the infection is. I assume
And
that
then
would still
just
stand.
so, I have a problem with number 7, any other disease designated, because I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I'm a person who I'm very hesitant to believe that they're not in the pockets of these pharmaceutical companies who are just, I mean, I've heard stories of how they rush through vaccines without the proper years and research that they're supposed to have, and especially, can't remember the name of it, I wanna say it, but it's that vaccine, they started for girls and now it's for guys too, HPV.
Cervical
You know,
cancer.
it's just like,
HPV.
you're trying to give that to 5-year-olds, so the requirements, I think at some point, it behooves us to just not say, and anything else you want. And
Yeah.
just sort of say, we have an issue with this, and maybe other districts will start to say, we have an issue with that one. And
Is that ed code mandated, or?
I don't know the answer to that. Do you know?
I mean, I think, I don't know if the seventh one is
Right.
mandated, I mean, the rest are.
Right. So I will say that this is from 2016, so we are updating our policies in accordance with the 2016 law. The law just recently changed again, so we'll be bringing this policy back to you once we have the CSBA recommended changes to this. The reason that we wanted to bring this now is because it specifically has language around independent study, and we now have an independent study program. So it was important to us to have the language around that independent study program in place. But this will be coming back with new language at some point in the
Fairly
near-ish
soon, yeah.
future for you, right?
I don't see how a catch-all can be mandated by the ed code, so I would be fine eliminating that last item.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, with that change, I'll move
I'm,
to.
if you guys want to hold on just 2 seconds, I'm
Yeah.
looking it up online here.
Sure.
Well, and I can always vote no, too.
So this is, the section being quoted is, as used in this chapter, governing authority means the governing board of each school district. Then it says the governing authority shall not unconditionally admit any person as a pupil of any private or public elementary or secondary school child, prior to his or her admission to that institution, he or she has been fully immunized. The following are the diseases for which immunization shall be documented, and they have a list. This actually lists 10, not the 7 here. And then, so, I mean, it does seem that we're obligated under the law to do it, right? I mean, that tells us what.
Right, I'm just wondering if we could use that list of 10 that's in the ed code rather than a catch-all that says.
Well, the last item in the code is any other disease. It's the same.
Oh, okay.
It's the same sentence.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't, we can deal with it in the
Right.
future, so.
Well, we're gonna have to look at this again, but I understand the need to have something in place.
I think what you're talking about is the list is longer now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There will be, and
There are changes with the medical
there are
exemptions.
changes around the medical exemption that we'll have to identify. But for right now, we just want to make sure our independent study students are able.
So is there a motion to approve as is?
Well, I'm okay with taking out that last catch-all because it's not designated by them until it's designated, and then we can change our
And then
policy.
we have to anyway.
Right.
Okay.
At that point.
Right,
So
I
it
mean,
doesn't
we
save
will,
us
we can
anything.
just change our policy to accept that next thing, so we don't have to.
So is there a motion?
So either way, it doesn't really matter.
Right, is there a motion to approve without the last item?
Would you prefer that, or are you just not gonna vote on it? All right, well, let's approve it as is then.
Okay.
Okay.
I move to approve it as is.
There-
This is why I bring a race.
Okay, roll call, Jane?
No.
Shelley?
Yes.
Jane, yes?
Yes.
Michael?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's 4-1. All right,
Before we move off of the policies, I
Yeah.
feel like this is something I should know and don't, so I'm just gonna feign ignorance, but once we approve these, where do they go? How do we tell the teachers? What communication happens, or do they sit on a shelf and we dust them off when we wanna
Well, they
change
sit
them?
on the website.
Right.
And all of our policies and our administrative regulations essentially live on the website. So they're really a reference tool for us and for parents if we have an issue and they say like, what's your policy on immunization? So they would go to the website, they would see what our particular policy says, and then they would ask questions or whatever. We don't necessarily, if it's a change that we're requiring something different, then we would roll that out to teachers and there would be some training around that. But if it's something like just changing these, we don't necessarily have a rollout plan, because these really are changing all the time. And,
But if it is something that affects the classroom,
Sure.
so
Then-
what comes to mind is I recall that we had a policy that required teachers to use the preferred
Gender
pronoun and gender pronoun and name of a student in the class that they chose. Do we ever tell teachers that? How do they know that that's what we at the board are saying needs to happen?
When you discuss these in the board meeting, the next day when I go back and send them in to CSBA to be posted on our website, or to be updated, and then we post, then they post them on our website. I send those to athletic director, to the principals, whatever you've indicated.
So it does
Because often
get-
you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we don't send everyone.
Yeah, the ones that are impactful.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I think that's an issue though. Truth be told, we had this, I remember having the conversation with Hank, but we still remember it. We implemented a policy where there was to be some collaboration between teachers and parents with respect to escalating degrees of punishment. And it was supposed to be happening on a yearly basis or something, and I'm like, I don't think we ever did it.
I used to always ask, are we
Yeah.
doing this, are we doing that? And then I just got tired.
The other thing that's really helpful is if we have an issue, for example, with a teacher who isn't using the correct gender pronoun, we're able to go back and say, this is the board policy that was adopted on such and such a date, you were informed in such and such a way, and you will need to do this, right? So.
Right,
it's-
I would hate for a teacher to not know, and if they were just trapped
Mhm.
into
Sure.
making a mistake that we had said don't do.
But that said, I think certainly for you administrators, if you identify things that are in our regulations that you don't think that we do, and that you don't think we need to do, we should just take them out. Because I think, as a board, I think that's where we're coming from. It's like, we don't think we should have policies that we don't follow.
Right.
So I think a lot of times we have asked, are we doing this? And you have said yes,
Yeah.
and then we've changed it from shall to may.
Yeah.
We've been very aware of that.
And I've asked, you'll see that this is in green, so you can see essentially the way that we bring these policies to you. We're trying a new system, and if it doesn't work, we can change it, but we bring things to you. If it's in red, it's something that we're required to do, and we essentially can't change it. If it's black, it's our current policy, and then if it's green, it's something that we can change as you'd like to. So this.
No more net and walk?
Right, right. And, well, because I didn't think it was
survive.
easy for you to see. So for example, in this policy that we just approved, our current policy says that 7, any other disease designated. So that's not a change unless we choose to strike that through. That's what it
already
currently
correct.
says. So being able to kind of easily see that at a glance, I think will help us in terms of what can we actually change, and what are we getting rid of, and what's already there.
And I think that's useful, but I think it's also good for us to read through these and see if our existing policy reflects our current thinking.
Right.
Can I be so bold as to ask you, Angie, if you feel like teachers are getting the pertinent information from policy changes? Or if there's something that you can see that we could do differently?
Well, I would say we do, I know that we get a piece of paper at times that is in our box. I don't know that we are actually, I go back to the whole sweet issue that we had a number of years ago where we were told not to have sugar in our classes, and then everybody was in an uproar because we all did certain things, and then when I sat in here and listened to the board policy was limit your sugar, not no sugar. And so I think sometimes the information that comes across is not necessarily your policy, it's just an interpretation of that policy. So I think we could probably do it better. I mean, even if we had a place that said that these have changed and it's in the office, or I don't know.
You know, I feel like so much paper comes, much less this year, thank you. So much paper used to come that stuff would get into our boxes, we'd take it, you'd set it down, and then you'd say, oh, great, it changed, and then you never think about it.
Right, right.
Well, and I think that's helpful to us to remember. It's like, you know, Kathy, could you please make sure, you know, this is really important, Cheryl, you know.
And I'll just say too, a lot of times when we get audited, as you know, like the FPM audit, a lot of what they're looking for is stuff that we're complying with policy. So a lot of times that's where corrections are made, right? Like for example, adopting the ELD specific curriculum that came out of our FPM audit, which is part of policy and part of ed code and part of things like that. So audits also help us check, sort of a check and balance of, are we doing a lot of the things that we say we're doing, or that are part of ed code or part of requirements. So.
Right, Chuck, you had a comment?
Yes, I made a call to Kathy earlier this week because I had watched the last board meeting that you had at the city, and I was very interested in the board policy because you were discussing charter school, but there was no discussion of it. I know it because I saw the documents, but somebody watching that meeting just started at page 65 because there was no discussion.
Right.
So, from somebody on the outside looking in, they would have no idea that there was any discussion or review of the policy, but we were all in agreement, so therefore there was no discussion.
Right.
I had to call Kathy. I know it was there, but there was no discussion.
Yeah.
So that's just from our perspective, because the classified employees sometimes do feel pinched. And Superintendent and I just had a discussion this week about that. And there'll be more discussion about that. Because that is something that technology, that classified employees aren't as exposed to, and yet that is district policy to use technology. And so we're having that discussion now about getting more training to that because they're really not exposed to it like a teacher would be.
Right.
But it is definitely an effect of classified as well.
Sure.
So, but I just want to share that experience because I knew it was up there, but because we were all in agreement, there was no discussion.
Right.
Other than what you agreed.
Right. Well, thanks. Yeah, I don't know what we do about that because we don't want to talk about all the, if we talked about everything, that'd be tedious too.
Well, it would help if we bring it in slow chunks, like smaller chunks.
Well, and
Right.
also, our current policies are always available on the website, so you can always, at any point, if you have a question, search the website and find what our current policy is. So if there's no changes to it, it doesn't mean that we don't have a policy, it just means it's on our website and it's the same policy that it's been, so.
In our
On that
office,
point,
we
though-
also have paper copies, 3 5-inch binders that have all the policies in them. And the pages are all a different color on the policies that you've adopted, so we can see easily which ones we've reviewed and which ones we have not.
Okay. Good. Yeah. And there will be more discussion on charter policies.
And also, I would just, last thing, it's very valuable that Chuck and Angie are always here. So if there's a major policy that affects your membership, I know that you are the best tool for communication with your members. And so we appreciate that you stay through these discussions, that you listen to these, that you have feedback. And if there was something that was highly impactful, I know that you're going to be telling your teachers tomorrow, hey, here's a big change that's coming and we're going to need to adopt this, right? So you are an excellent tool for us in terms of the total communication plan to teachers and staff.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to rescheduling the regular board meeting in December.
I'll move to approve the change from December 17th to Monday, December 16th.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
I comment on that, that still doesn't solve our charter.
We're still one day past, and so as we now work specifically with the charter school petition team, we'll discuss either the need for extension. If they don't agree to an extension, then we'll schedule a board meeting to have that final vote, so. But we haven't had that discussion yet.
Okay, so for now, great, roll call, Jane,
Yes.
Kelly, Dania.
Yes.
Michael, okay with the?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's unanimous. And approval of the district logo, which has been up on the screen for a while now. How are we feeling? Any comments?
You know, I noticed in the email from VCOE it said, get to know your school districts, and it had every Ventura County school logo. And I'm like, gosh, we've spent a lot of time on this. It's just gonna look, it fits right in. Perfect, let's go. I'm good.
I love the new blue.
Yes.
Love it, love it. I still would like the hillside to be green instead of brown, but
I
not
tried,
gonna.
and Kathy said she hated it. No, I actually made some versions, and we hung them up, and we talked to people, and there was a lot of discussion about how the hills aren't really green.
They were this year.
So
They are.
I'm not calling Kathy out, but we did actually try multiple colors of the
It
hills,
seems
and
like
it
you
just
need
didn't.
something bright and light right there under the blue.
Yeah.
If you do something dark, it's
And we
not
tried to pick
gonna
the yellow
work.
up, the same yellow from the sun to the mountains
Yeah.
to the feather.
I
So we're
think it's-
repeating color design elements throughout.
Is the background color kind of the wild card that can be just changed? I mean, obviously I've seen it brown on this, this is black, basically, right?
It actually,
If you look on the printed version, it's more brown.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
that
like
is
a gray
up there,
brown,
'cause that looks black to me.
and it hasn't changed.
It looks black up there, but on the printed version in the binder, it looks more
I
brown.
kind of like black. I mean, I like the cleanness of that. The brown in the printed copy looks more muddy.
But this
I
way
guess
we
that's why
get
it's brown.
both. On the
Yeah.
website, it'll be black, and in
Yeah.
print, it'll be brown. Best of both worlds.
And right, it does depend on how you kind of look at that color, but
I kind of agree with Kevin on that. I'm thinking more on vehicles. The
Just
this
a big
printed version.
expanse of brown, I think, is not very attractive.
I don't care.
I'm
Whatever
worn,
you guys decide,
I'm worn down now.
fine.
So, and I think we can approve the logo, but variations of it can be used, right? That's, so.
Now, the hillsides are green in that one, the existing one.
And there's trees that are green. I don't believe that's really Ojai.
I would say that I feel like this logo is an improvement over our what we currently have and
I'll move
in
to
its true
approve this
representation.
logo.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Chuck, you had a comment though.
I have a question. To print brown, does it take more ink than if you were to do black? Is there colors involved to do that? Would it be more expensive?
We're already printing kind of a
Probably.
full color, so it's
Well, with a printer, if you go to a print shop, it wouldn't be more expensive, but if you use your home printer, then it might be, right, marginally,
The
barely.
majority of the schools will be using black and white.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call. Jane?
Yes.
Shelley?
Yes.
Dane, yes. Kevin?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, 4.5. All right.
We have a
board-
new logo, you guys.
Yeah,
Yay.
congratulations. Good work, everyone. All right, board members and future agenda items. Any comments, anything?
I've got some.
Great. Kevin?
As you know, I wanted, and obviously, I guess tonight was gonna go too long, I think we should talk about the music program in the district. It's a good opportunity to just see the broader, I was talking to Bill Wagner, and he didn't exactly even know what was going on at Matilaha in terms of, the band is gonna be on the wheel, right? It's not gonna be consistently,
in sixth grade,
Only in sixth.
but in seventh and eighth grade, it's a class.
For sixth grade, it alternates with PE, so they can do band or strings on the opposite end of.
Yeah, but they
Um,
have
PE.
band or string as a class.
but they'll be able to, it's a sixth grade, they'll be able to take, it's band, it's not,
Ukulele.
Nope,
Right.
it's band.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, well, I don't know, I mean, maybe everyone knows, I just don't, it's just not, I think it feels to me like it'd be a good time to kind of recapitulate where we are in terms of how we're funding it at the school, at the elementary schools and.
So as part of our Guiding Coalition work and in preparation for the Guiding Coalition on creativity, we're actually working on a map right now of every grade level and what
art and music we have at every grade level at every site and how it's funded. And so we'll be bringing that map. You'll have access to see that map of kind of everything that's happening across the district in terms of like our arts programs, including music. So
Great, and we're gonna do
yeah.
art too?
Yep. So art's part of
When will
that.
that be presented?
Well, we're working on it now, and then we'll present it to the guiding coalition, and the guiding coalition will kind of look at like, oh, here's what we think and what we would recommend and what this looks like, but we're happy to share that information at any time as soon as we have it collected. So we just started yesterday on that kind of
I mean, I
holistic.
think especially early in the school year, are we consistent? Are we fair? Is it equal?
So far, it looks good. Two elementary schools have put their stuff in. It looks like we have music and art in every single classroom across the district. But it's being funded by in some cases, differently, and so a lot of it is parent volunteer when it comes to art, but one school has an art teacher. So those are some of the variations, but across the district, every classroom so far is looking like they have art and music.
Could we plan on seeing that in December? Would that-
Well, no, I think that's something that if she sends out, just send out an email so we know what it is and know what the guiding coalition is working on, but to come here, then we're throwing in, I don't know, just.
Right, we're essentially trying to bring this to this group of community members or whoever applies to say, do an assessment of what we have, look at what's our kind of strategic plan, what would you recommend, looking at these programs holistically across the district so that we could increase our arts and music in the community. So, I don't know
And
exactly.
Remind me, this is a guiding coalition specific to arts and music?
It's
Creativity.
broadly in creativity, but it includes arts and music as part of that program. And I don't know exactly what the group will choose to focus on. It'll kind of be up to the leadership of that group. But the other thing, as I mentioned, we have a new music teacher this year. So he inherited what had been happening, but I know that he definitely has some ideas about how we could change in the future. And we just haven't had that opportunity because he's brand new. So I think we would want to collectively kind of think about what that looks like. But this map is really our way of looking at that inclusivity to say, does everyone have equal access, first of all, to art and music in every class, in every grade, across the board, and what does that look like, and do we have any gaps first?
And is equal what we want? I mean, we want it to be equal, but
Right.
are we at the level that we want to be at?
And
Right.
it sounds like maybe some is sponsored by the district and some is sponsored by PTAs, is that what's going on? So then that's also
And
a question.
Bravo pays for ETM
Right.
music across the district. And then part of the variation is who's actually doing the teaching, whether it's volunteers or teachers.
Yeah, so we're happy to provide all of that information, and then I think as this group kind of looks at, what would we, if we could build anything with arts and music in the community, what we want to see and how can we connect that to resources? So that's
So
what
as
I
a
would
board
hope.
member, I'm concerned about this particular issue, so I would like to
Sure.
have information on it.
Mhm. Would you like to be on the guiding coalition?
Maybe.
I'd be happy to hear a report on that too,
Mhm.
when we have it. What other?
And I had one other thing.
Sure.
I know that we had issues with climate tech, and I feel like we need to figure out, we need to address that in some way to find out, one, contractually, if we have options, things like that, because that was such a big contract that we have with them.
And how is that going? And is this room part of that?
No, this room has an illegal twist timer, which we've gotten. So, David and Alan and Adam and I have addressed that. I think we may have to wait until David comes back because he really has been kind of the bridge with the climate tech. But I think they've completed everything that we asked them to do. But we're happy to bring that back where I can provide it to you in a Friday update, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And we have deferred a lot for this property too, so.
Right.
I'm not,
Could both those things be put on the
Yes,
Uh,
on the
parking
future
lots,
agendas,
yeah,
parking
thanks.
lots,
So
yes.
would it be, so with climate tech, maybe I can give you a Friday update, and then if because there may be some things that we might not want to necessarily share in public session, so maybe I can give you a Friday update, and then if it seems like that's something that you'd like to discuss further as a board,
And I can give you kind of, this is where we are and this is what we think, et cetera. And
I mean, in terms of the contractor,
Right, right.
Because,
Private.
you know, just
Yeah.
to put some
employee
perspective,
relationship kind of.
they
Right.
made a presentation, a public presentation to us, you know, it was a real effort to convince us and show us everything that was gonna happen and reassured us, and it seems to me that we should follow up.
Yeah, for sure.
Good points. Any other,
I have one,
yep,
my one last push for any board members who would like to go to CSBA conference in December. The reason I keep pushing it is we hear from our teachers how important professional development is. And I think as a learning school district, it's important that we continue to learn as well, in order to do our jobs as best we can. And so I'm putting in another plug. I'm gonna go. I'm considering going to a pre-session on board presidency. And so I'm just throwing it out there again.
Sure, I think,
Thank you.
I specifically, I was intending to get back to, I think I just can't, because we're going away for Thanksgiving for a whole week, and I just won't be able to, because of work.
I'm only planning a couple of weeks ahead in my life right now.
Well, the deadline is, I think, November 3rd, 4th,
Okay.
something like that. And, well, that's
You
the
can go all
deadline
the way
for
up
the
to the day,
lowest,
yeah.
you know, then the price
Right.
bumps up, after that date.
Thank you. That's good. Jane, anything?
No, I'm just, in terms of board member report, I'd like to say congratulations to the football team and the volleyball team. And Lord
Yeah.
Off seem to be doing really
Golf
well
team.
this year. Golf,
Women's golf.
women's
Golf.
golf,
Yeah,
How's
football
tennis?
has made a
Girls'
lot of
tennis?
progress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
that's great.
Oh, and the play this Friday.
My
Yeah, going to
thoughts.
see the play, which is exciting.
Michael, any comments, last thoughts, last chance?
No, other than, I just want to appreciate Kathy and Kat for hooking me up tonight. It really worked well, so thank you so much.
It's great to have you here. The only problem is you haven't been able to pass the papers along.
So in other words, we really miss you.
So we do miss you. All right, thanks a lot. And here's the gavel amid all the papers. We'll adjourn
See you, Mike.
till next time. Thank you very much.